CoCoTALK is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCoTALK show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. It's time to drop your socks and grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to CoCoTALK, episode 126. Today, we're going to be wrapping up our experiences at VCF Midwest and visiting the Glenside Color Computer Picnic live.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
All right, we are here, everybody, and you know it's a show when you're already getting trolled by Jim Brain from Retro Innovations. Jim is in full effect. Step 1, disclaimer to eliminate any liability. Step 2, cheesy intro song. Step 3, extraneous intro by amateur host.
Well, I'm glad you've been promoted to amateur.
Congratulations.
Jim Brain is out there trolling in full effect. We appreciate you, Jim. We would be nothing without you. We got a fun, hopefully a fun day today. You're going to notice on the screen here we've got a camera pointing to the living room of Brian, the music man, Brian Schubring from the Glenside Color Computer Club. So we're going to be seeing, possibly for the first time in recorded history, a live picnic from the Glenside Color Computer Club. So we're going to have that going on. We've got a special guest today. Matt from Drackware is here. We've got a full panel. We're going to be talking about VCF Midwest. We'll be talking to the folks at Glenside about their picnic. We'll be talking about color computer news and who knows what else. So why don't we introduce the panel? I'm going to go in counterclockwise direction here, starting on the bottom of the world and the bottom of the screen here. All the way in Australia, big hi and good day to David O'Connor. How are you, David?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
We are glad to have you back. And your neighbor in Australia, just throw a boomerang over there to him and let him know to wake up. It's Nick Morentes. Good day, Nick.
Is it wake up time? Is it?
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. for you guys, right?
This is when the nausea starts.
We've got in Texas the king of the dumpster fire, Richard Lorbieski, is with us. Hello, Richard.
Hello. Even though it's midday, I'm still tired because this show is boring.
We've got from the Arctic town of Arizona, Mr. Ron Delvaux is with us. Hey, Ronnie.
Hey, 64K to you guys.
64K from Canada. Name so nice you must say it thrice. It's Nick Marotta. Nick Marotta. Hello, Nick.
Good afternoon. I can't believe people get up at 4 in the morning to watch this.
I know. And we apologize in advance. That's right.
Yes.
You can even skip the 4 in the morning part.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Brain surprised anybody watches this stuff, let alone at 4 in the morning.
Yes, and somewhere on the Ohio Turnpike is Jason Reichert. Hello, Jason.
Howdy, howdy. Panel members may be closer than they appear.
From whereabouts unknown in a scientist laboratory somewhere, Sir David Ladd is with us. Hello, David.
Good day, everyone. Is everybody prepared for today's show? I am.
All right. I'd like a little wine with that cheese there. Thank you, David.
That would be yes.
Yeah, turn it down a bit, David. You sound too enthusiastic.
Yes.
He normally does.
Making the rest of us seem monochromatic here. We've got another guy who's not on too much, but we like him. He's an Apple guy. We won't hold that against him. John Lowry's here. Hey, John.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
All right.
Hey, John.
We must keep our foreign quota up high, so another Canadian here taking away our American jobs. L. Curtis Boyle, how are you, Curtis?
I'm doing good. And by the way, Jim just added a fourth step to
Mentally
this list here.
unstable.
Mentally unstable panel member intro.
Keep them coming, Jim. All right, all the way out there in Texas too, right, Joe Burnett?
That is right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome
and
back.
I'm jealous of the fellow Texas dumpster fire down there.
Mm-hmm.
You got your Coco yet?
You got your Arduino Coco at least, don't you, Joe?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. Another Apple guy, and we don't hold that against him, Mark D. Overholzer.
Hey, glad to be here.
Mark is here just to make sure all our pixels are coming through clearly, so he's got his Spectra Vision goggles on there to making sure the live stream's coming through nice, visually clear. Somewhere on a highway unknown, we're looking in his rear view mirror, Terry Steggy's here.
Welcome from the great state of Wyoming, everybody.
All right.
I thought he was chasing Jason. Sorry.
I can't drive that fast.
We got our backup stream engineer and all-around fun guy, Mark Bosley's with us.
Hello, everybody.
Our special guest from D.C., Matt from, is it Drackware or Drakeware?
It is Drackware.
Matt from Drackware. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
And then we got a whole bunch of people at Glenside, which hopefully we'll be able to see more often. Right now I see Rich Blair sitting in the couch. Hey, Rich, how are you? Can you see us? Is that Mrs. Blair sitting next to you? We're waving at you, Rich. They may not be listening to us anyways. Okay, that's fine. And they're better off for not listening to us. All right. So we're here. We're going to probably have things to talk about today. We certainly hope so. And we're going to jump in, though, just to our special guest, because I'm glad we got a chance to meet him at VCF West. And he's doing some things that I think are of interest to some of us here on the panel, because we're all working on miscellaneous projects. And I know David's working on a project for a mouse adapter. But Matt from Drackware, let me pull up your it is Drackware, right, Matt?
It is. Yep.
Drackware. Let me pull up your website real quick just to show everybody what Matt has here at Drackware. But he's got a lot of different adapters here. So we can add a USB keyboard and mouse to your Sun workstation. We can add a modern keyboard and VGA adapter to your Next system. We've got PS2 to USB. We've got Apple Desktop Bus to USB. We've got Sun to USB, Mac to USB, Indigo to USB, Next to USB, Next to. We got things to add keyboards from all kinds of systems to all kinds of places. And so that's kind of what you were showing off at VCF, right, Matt, with some of your various keyboard adapters. So welcome to the program. And why don't you maybe tell us a little bit about your backstory and then fast forward to what got you to what you're doing here today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I got started probably when I was about 2 years old. As soon as I could stand, I was on the IBM PC, and then have mostly been on PCs. I don't have any experience with the Coco, so apologies. Let's see, about 2001, I got an old SGI Indigo and liked that, but couldn't really do anything with it. Ended up selling it. And then a few years ago, I picked another one up, but the keyboards now are pretty rare and expensive when they show up. So I thought, hey, I wonder if I could build a little Arduino adapter to connect a USB keyboard to that. And then that sent me down this whole rabbit hole of, I wonder if I could build my own board, and I wonder if I could do it for the Next, or do the other way, take a Next keyboard, plug it into USB. And so now I just have a whole range of everything I'm interested in. I want to convert keyboards and mice to and from.
Okay, very cool. And how long have these products been on the market?
So about 2 years was the first one. So I started out with the Next and the Indigo, and now I've got Apple, Mac, Sun, all the stuff you just saw.
Okay, and for those who don't know, the SGI, that's what, Silicon Graphics Industries, right? That's an old graphics workstation.
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s graphics workstations. So if you saw...
Yeah, it was a competitor to Sun, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. If you saw Terminator 2 or Jurassic Park, all those special effects were Silicon Graphics machines.
Right. And they ran some form of Unix.
Yeah, IRIX was their flavor of it.
Yeah. I spent a couple of years, maybe it's been about 6 years now, but I spent a couple of years working in the visual effects industry. And to this day, visual effects are all run on Linux. And I'm assuming it's because of the legacy of the earliest graphics workstations being Unix type doohickeys, right? So that whole Linux tradition kind of carried forward. So
The original graphics for Donkey Kong Country was also done on SGI.
And there's John Strong, folks, from Strongware. So what is the magic ingredients you use, Matt, to make an old keyboard talk to a new input or vice versa? What are you kind of doing? And how did you come up with that? I guess you looked at the schematics and things like that for how they work?
Yeah, just looked for basically just Google USB chip and then found the one that had all the features I wanted. So I started with Arduinos, but the AVR chips on those need a lot of external support, so they end up being a pretty big adapter. So the ones that I've got for keyboard to USB end up being about this big. So it's about 1 inch long and then half an inch wide.
Yeah, it's pretty compact.
So that's a little SI Labs chip. It's an 8051 with a USB transceiver on it, and so it just is a nice little chip to program, and it only needs a couple of extra components, and they all fit pretty snugly in there. And then
aren't microcontrollers great?
They are. And then the bigger ones are an FTDI vinculum, so it's got 2 USB ports on one end, and then it can support most of the keyboards and mice I've thrown at it. It has a little trouble with hubs, but I'm working on that.
Neat.
And, that's for going the other way, back to the vintage systems.
So plugging in a USB keyboard to a vintage system, you've got adapters for that too.
Yep. Those are harder to do because the USB host is a little more demanding. But.
Okay. And how did you do at the fest? Did you get a good lot of interest in your product? People came by and saw you and everything else at the vintage thing?
Yeah. Pretty good. I had some sales and gave away all my business cards, so
excellent.
That was nice. And and it's just great to get out. I usually just go there so I can see everything, and then selling stuff is a bonus.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Was this your first year there as a vendor? Or?
First year at Midwest. Yep, I was at VCF East earlier.
Were you at VCF East this year?
I was, yeah.
East, okay, but we weren't at East. We were at West, right? Our coverage of West, we did West, but actually,
yes, that was West.
We covered West, but I think
Tom C. shot some
was
footage
there.
of East. Yeah. Didn't he shoot some footage?
Tom C. was there. Yeah, we actually have some footage from East that we will show off one of these days if Tom ever joins us on the program. And those were wondering if Tom C. was a real person or not. We actually got to see the real Tom C. in person this weekend, as past weekend at VCF Midwest. So, yes, Tom is a real guy. Okay, so you were at VCF East, which we did not cover here on this show, but we did cover VCF West this year. And so what's closer to you? Is the East closer to you, Midwest, or is it all about the same?
East is close. I can drive to that one, so that's nice. This one I flew out to Chicago. So.
Yeah, it's cool. It's amazing it's amazing all the different doohickeys we have now to kind of keep our retro systems going, right? So it's kind of necessity. Now, you mentioned earlier before we went live, you 3D print your own enclosures for everything too. You do that yourself, or do you have somebody else do that for you?
No, I do it all myself. So all of these type of enclosures are all 3D printed. Just print 2 halves and then stick them together on top of the device.
Hey, way to go.
Yeah,
good to see somebody else that does it.
Yeah, John Strong's a guy in our community that makes all kinds of cool stuff and 3D prints cases for him too. So you must have had a background in electronics before going on to this, or was this like all brand new? You had learned how to do it when you did these products?
Kind of brand new. I'd been messing with it a little bit for a long time, and I've been programming forever. So just taught myself basically over the last few years about the electronics side of it. But then all the firmware and everything, I was comfortable with doing that.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely glad you joined us, and there's some guys on here on the panel that I really wanted to make sure they could maybe talk to you and pick your brain or swap stories and ideas and suggestions. But David Ladd, he has been working on a PS2 mouse to color computer adapter. I think I told you a little bit about how the input on ours works. Right, we've got like a 5 or 6 pin DIN, and it's basically it's a 6-bit digital analog conversion. And it's kind of got like a variable resistance potentiometer for our joysticks. And again, that's about as highly technical as I can speak to that subject, because now I've run out of knowledge. But well,
that was pretty short for you.
Yeah, I ran out of gas on my technical prowess there. But David, why don't you tell Matt a little bit about what you've been working on, and maybe you guys can share war stories and stuff.
Well, for me, I hate the ball mice, and the Coco's ball mice are especially horrid. So, I got some input from Jim Brain. Most people know him as Gopher Retro or Retro Innovations. And he gave me some input, and I used a dual channel SPI DAC for doing the output. And there's all kinds of libraries out there for Arduino for doing PS2 input. So I found one that seemed to work the best for me for the mouse, and well, just threw the code together and been through, I think, what, Mark Overholzer, 4 or 5 board revisions so far?
Yep. And about 18 months of development, so it's pretty solid.
So it's been working well. I also have a joystick input, so I can pass through a Coco joystick as well, and I use the center PS2 mouse button to switch between the PS2 mouse and the connected Coco joystick, so that way you don't have to keep unplugging cables all the time.
Yep, very nice feature.
Cool.
So,
and you were showing that off this past weekend too, weren't you?
yes, it's been shown off, I think, several places. Mark, you was showing that off at VCF West's, right?
Yes, also Pacific Northwest, VCF Pacific Northwest, and CoCoFEST this year and last year.
There you go. So David's got a little project, and that's cool stuff. And I think Mark Bosley was talking about something he had worked on before the show too. Mark, didn't you have something where you could get a USB mouse going to the Coco, Mark B?
Yeah, I put together a little Arduino project where, just use a standard USB mouse to the joystick. Works good for ease of use, which was the goal that I had in mind.
Yeah.
So you're basically using the Arduino to do a DA conversion and send a voltage out to the joystick port. Is that right? Or
yeah, I've got the one of the USB host adapter shields, and then using more or less the standard library that comes with those, read the XY position to generate a basically the PWM signal. Use some op amps to convert that to the 0 to 5 volt signal that the Coco needs, and then a couple little transistor switches to emulate the button push.
Do you guys understand what he just said there?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Two of you did. That's
No
good.
problem.
Yeah. So that's kind
Great.
of good. Speaking of hardware, guys, we got Jim Brain from Retro Innovations taking a break from trolling to maybe join the panel here for just a moment. So
Or he's going to do it live.
Or what were you saying about the panel members now that you're on, Jim?
They've improved greatly, tremendously.
Yes, I had to come in and improve the intelligence level.
Oh no!
Well, you failed.
Did you see Matt's offerings? That he was in the kind of hallway when you first walked in. Did you see some of Matt's keyboards adapters while you're there, Jim? I know you were busy.
No, that's fine. I had a chance to walk around. Matt and I talked. Actually, I have his card sitting around here somewhere. Was marveling over the little compactness of the adapters and whatnot. He and I talked a little bit about his various options, about how it looked like I mean, you couldn't really tell they were all kind of black, but colored, but it looked like there was a bit of a progression in technology. I think some of his early adapters were maybe Arduino based with some Vinculum type USB adapters, and then it looks like he's moved into kind of more of a compact all-in-one type of controller to reduce cost and reduce size, like that inch by half an inch type of box that he has. It's really, really nice. I think, from my standpoint, it's kind of interesting to see somebody, when they're like, okay, I want to make this, and so here I've got 4 or 5 chips and it'll do the work, and then as you get going and you figure out what works and what doesn't, then you get to those kind of refined, elegant solutions that are on probably the other side of the table. But he had a nice big spread there. Must have asked for a table late, because I think that outside area was kind of filled in later. So is that correct, or did they just put you there because you were a vendor?
No, I kept checking the website for the registration to open, and it never opened. And so once they posted and said, "Oh, tables are closed," I sent them an email like, it was never open. So they said, "Oh, we can fit you in the hallway," which ended up being great because everybody had to come in through there.
Yeah, yeah, you were like
Right.
first people we saw when you first walk in.
Forced foot traffic.
As-
I've actually worked on
Yeah.
that.
As they say in real estate, location.
Location. Yeah, and it was funny because I guess maybe it was Saturday morning. We were just sitting down there having breakfast, and I was sitting right next to Matt. I didn't know he was a vendor. We were just sitting there, and we were just talking and stuff. And then I walk in, and I see him like, oh yeah, you're that guy I had breakfast with. Oh, what is this? Oh, this is cool, right? And when, I forgot if it was Saturday or Sunday. Maybe it was Sunday. But right next to us, the other guy sitting next to me was the guy who ended up, I found out he said he worked for Microsoft and he worked on the Quick Basic project and stuff like that. So we started talking. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, dude, you're like my hero. I spent years working on Quick Basic. So it's really interesting. Some of the random conversations like Brian DeSchubing is showing us some outdoor view of the picnic there. Let me make that big real quick. So we can see some of that. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting people you might just run into at VCF Midwest. So that was kind of cool. So anybody have any questions for Matt about some of his products or maybe some of the challenges or kind of evolutions he went through and everything?
I think my question is, a lot of the devices that you had were converting sort of one protocol to another protocol. Do you have any, I guess, interest in maybe converting like USB, or I think primarily yours were like USB based, to maybe a direct connection? So on the color computer, as well as like on the Commodore, and I even think on the Apple and the Atari, they are a very simplistic, because they're an all-in-one computer system. They just have the rows and columns for the keyboard matrix, and that's the connector that's easily accessible. Are you interested, or would you feel like there's any value in building something that's maybe more of that type of solution as opposed to converting from USB to like the next protocol, or USB to XT or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. Every time I go to these shows, I get a million suggestions like, oh, you should build one for this and this. So I keep a list of everything that I should build. So the one I'm working on now is an ASCII keyboard. So I've got this little, it's got the Apple II pinout, but it's just a parallel ASCII keyboard. And you can configure the strobe, positive or negative, and the polarity of the actual keys. So yeah, I could do something like that would work on the Coco and probably other systems.
Good. I think that'd be helpful, because there's, from the various protocols, especially USB or whatnot, I know there's some products out there, like I have one that's PS2 based for Commodore to interface to a matrix, but as we all know, PS2's, its time has come and gone. So USB and Bluetooth and other technologies are well supplanting the PS2 protocol. So it's time for some technology change there.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, here's an interesting question for you, Matt. This is from a guy named, his name is Ben Drake. So he does a VR thing. It's from Explore VR is his YouTube channel. And just to give you a little background, what he's been doing lately is he has this VR setup where he's like in a treadmill and he puts on a headset and he walks around and does stuff. But he's been adapting a lot of retro games to virtual reality through emulation, where he can convert the movements from his headsets and his treadmill. He converts that to keystroke movements that are picked up by an emulator. It's kind of how he's bridging VR to the retro world. He's asking a question: I'd like to output keystrokes from my PC to a real color computer or Dragon, but not necessarily directly from a keyboard. So I'm assuming he wants to take output from his VR rig and have that somehow feed a retro system and being interpreted as actual physical keystrokes. So I know that was kind of a long-winded setup, but it sounds similar to what Jim Brain just asked you, basically a keyboard input, but instead of it being a direct USB keyboard input, it might be some other third-party input, but would somehow feed right into the keyboard port of the Coco. Did that make sense?
Yeah, you could probably do it, just a serial connection would be able to, or a serial connection to some kind of microcontroller that could do whatever it needed to do to convert to whatever input you want on whatever vintage system you're using. So it might be slightly easier than dealing with USB, because USB is a huge pain.
Yeah, so you would wind up having to do some sort of software thing on the Coco, because let's say if you're controlling a Coco game with the keyboard, you're actually either scanning the keyboard reading the keyboard directly or more than likely using the ROM routine, which scans the keyboard. And so the easiest way to do it would essentially be to rewrite the routine that normally scans the keyboard to just read the serial port and take actions based on that.
Except that would be a backwards compatibility problem with everything that's out there now. You'd have to reprogram. All those.
Yeah, it sounds like he's looking for something that would just seamlessly be interpreted as a real keyboard, like maybe a pass-through, an inline keyboard thing that would plug into the Mylar that could pick up external inputs.
Like a keyboard emulator. Right. I think the two things that we've talked about. So the idea of plugging something in where the keyboard is directly, so that however many 16 pin or whatever connector that's there, that we just talked about things for that. But then instead of having like a USB host to plug in a USB keyboard, I think the question would be, can you do like an on-the-go capability, USB on-the-go, so they could just plug that into their PC, and it would look like a device to the PC and just send codes out to there.
And then in other words, instead of using real hardware, you would use an emulator on a PC.
Yeah, well,
middleware or something.
Yeah, I forget what the guy's name is, but
Benjamin.
Okay, what he's doing is he's got a PC or Linux or some sort of device that he's using to provide feedback. So let's say that you turn your head, and you know that in this game, it's a first-person view type game, like what's the one that's
Phantom Slayer or something like that.
Well, on the
Gatecrasher,
on the Coco though, those are Coco games. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so if you know that you're in a VR headset and you know that if you turn your head, you can tell from the whatever sensors they are that you've turned, and you know that hitting the key R on the keyboard would turn the view to the right. That's what he wants to do. He wants to translate the information he's getting from the sensors into sending a code for R out the USB port or something, and then have it be interpreted by something that Dracware would make to make an R key press appear on the keyboard of Coco, and so the Coco game would turn right, and then of course if you turn left or whatever, it would just follow along. That way he doesn't have to make any code changes to the actual game. He just loads in a binding conversion to say, okay, you're playing this game, so the key for right is R and the key for left is L, but this other game, the key for right is the
right arrow key.
Right. So that's what he's looking for, and I think the easiest way to do that is to interface right to the keyboard, but instead of assuming that the thing that's going to be the other end is a USB keyboard, it would be nice to be able to say, well, either a USB keyboard will appear on the other side of me, or I will hook up to a PC and just expect some keystrokes to come. I don't think that would be outside the realm of possibility. It's just Dracware would have to make the code a little bit more complex to say, well, when I connect to something USB, it could be a PC or it could be a keyboard.
Another thing you could potentially do too, you could have the PC and your VR hardware have a USB output on it and have that something attached to the USB output to provide like a TTL transistor switched output that you could connect directly to the 6821 on a Coco, directly to the scan line.
You absolutely could. You absolutely could. I think the key here is probably what we're seeing is somebody that says, listen, I got a whole bunch of stuff I'd like to do on my end that has to do with the VR piece. Could I just offload this part to somebody else to make a product?
Right. This might not be a something that Matt's going to create himself, but at least we got him here. We can pick his brain on it. But it sounded like what Ben's asking for is a kind of an inline physical keyboard connector to the Coco that would accept external input that we could then customize on a PC on what we send to the actual Coco keyboard. So
and Ben, feel free to join in on the call here too to explain things a bit quicker.
Yeah, if you want to join us on Zoom. Yeah, we don't want to make Matt's head explode right now with
the big hardware issue with that is that there's not an external or separate keyboard for the Coco. There's the Coco keyboard and the the crappy ribbon cable that goes
Yeah.
into the motherboard. So that would be your interface point.
Right, and that's true for all retro systems. So this is an interesting idea.
Even the AT keyboard adapters we have do it that way. They interface to the ribbon cable to maintain compatibility.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting question. So maybe Matt, you can put that on your list of things to think about. It may not be your highest priority, but and we got other people on the call here too who work on things like this. So it's an interesting idea, for sure.
It sure is.
Well, I'm actually working on a similar project myself with Ed Snyder's mechanical keyboard. It's got literal contacts underneath the keyboard that you can access for every single key. And I'm going to make up an interface to connect directly to the bottom of that keyboard with logic inputs. Just basically put transistors across the key contacts. And then I can connect any logic signal to any key and activate it, say from sequencers or synthesizers or something like that to control the Coco.
So, you and I have got to talk because there's an easier way.
Are you basically saying you're going to turn a mechanical keyboard into like a player piano where you can actually control which keys get pressed and everything?
Basically, yeah. That's what it sounds like.
That's crazy talk.
It'd be even better if they actually go down like on a player piano. Oh, look, there's the A key going down, right?
We need to have this in an old. We need to have your Coco in an old saloon somewhere doing this too.
Yeah, right. Hey,
all right.
David, before you have you done a whole lot on putting all those transistors in there?
It's a pretty straightforward job, really. I've got a bag full of 2N3904s that'll do the trick. I've got about 100 of them or 200 of them or something here. So,
well, what I need to do is I need to ship you a chip that would make this a little bit easier for you, because they have, and a lot of the keyboard adapter projects that we're talking about, they use this one chip that, has like 5 or 6 different numbers, but it's all essentially the same chip. It's called a cross-point switch. And it's an MT8808 or MT8812 or MT8816, depending on whether you want depending on whether you want an 8x8, a 12x8, or a 16:8 matrix. And it'll take care of doing all those. It'll take care of doing all those by without having to put the little individual transistors in. So you should get with me, and you might be able to do your thing a little quicker.
That's really cool. I'll definitely take you up on that. We'll have to talk.
Okay.
Camera set up.
Hey, Brian, the Australians want to know if you got any shrimp on the Barbie there. There's our Glenside picnic coming in, Brian. Brian, the music man's grilling it up.
That's making me hungry.
Got it. That's why I put it here.
Hey, Brian, you're making us all hungry now.
Welcome to Meat and Texture.
Yes. This is not a vegan-friendly show, I'll tell you that much.
All right, any of those Impossible Burgers? No,
yes.
I didn't get any hot dogs.
They are.
All right. Well, listen, Matt. I don't want to derail it too much, but these are a lot of great questions, and I think there's a lot of possibilities here when we start to look at these in-betweener type technologies and adapters, and it's definitely making a lot of light bulbs go off in people's heads right now too.
Hey,
So.
Chris, say hi.
Hello. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, I have a quick question for Jim.
For Jim Brain?
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Jim, John has a question for you.
All right, I'm listening.
Okay, what's the status of your OPL adapter, your expander? I've been busy moving, and then...
Well, I tell you what. Why don't we hold that and make sure that our featured guest gets done with his conversations, and then we can talk about that for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Matt, is there? I know we kind of went off in 15 different directions. Apologize about that, but have we kind of covered your product offerings pretty well? Is there anything else you wanted to add, or now that you've heard all these rapid fire questions, do you regret joining the program at this point? Or?
No, that's good. Yeah, right now it's mostly USB to something or something to USB, but I've got a few that I'm working on, like power supply adapters. So you can take a ATX power supply and put it in an old Nextcube or a Indigo or something, because I have a couple that the supplies died. So I thought, how hard is it to make a little adapter board? And so I've got those. And then the newest one, I've replaced the next sound box, which is the part that you need. If you have everything else, you still can't run your next station. You need the sound box, which is unobtainium. So I've been working on an FPGA to replicate the chip in there, which basically just multiplexes the sound and the keyboard together.
And that was the Steve Jobs system that he made after they fired him from Apple, right?
Yeah, he left Apple and founded Next, and they kind of sort of failed, and then Apple bought them for $400 million. So they ended up winning.
It wasn't a complete failure.
No.
It was a pretty good investment.
Basically the modern Mac OS is the continuation of
OS 10 is the continuation of Next Step.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like they invested in a startup.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about that is the Next systems were developed on PC hardware, and then when Steve Jobs came back and sold Next to Apple, because Apple needed a new operating system, their old one was just cobbled together, and they needed something new and fresh, and Next was the perfect fit. But Apple was using the Motorola and then the Freescale
PowerPC
stuff, and but the interesting thing about that is in 2006, when Apple converted to Intel, that whole time Apple had continued development of the Next or Mac OS 10 OS under Intel at the same time that they were putting it out under the PowerPC chips as well. So when the conversion to Intel occurred, it was very smooth because they never really quit developing the PC hardware side or the Intel side of the software.
Interesting.
They've done the same thing probably for ARM as well. They've continued to develop for the ARM platform going forward.
Okay, folks, we're going down a rat hole here. Let's get back on topic.
Yeah, I have a question to ask Matt. Matt, is it possible then with these adapters you're making, is it possible to make a USB to color computer joystick connection? In other words, taking say a USB mouse and having the circuit adapt the USB signals to a resistive connection, that because the color computer has a resistor based joystick port, and they use that on the mouse as well. But yeah, having a USB mouse converted to look like a potentiometer type mouse or joystick, is that possible?
It is. Yeah, I don't make one. Mark's got like a
Mark Bosley's got one
over there.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, this is what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Mark's got one.
This is what one looks like.
Yeah.
Is that one you built, or is it something?
Yeah, that's one I built.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Uses any wired mouse and connects out to the joystick port.
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk a bit more about that sometime.
Yeah. I had a couple questions for Matt. One is obviously the Vintage Computer Festival in Midwest was in a new venue this year, and this is probably your first time going. Did you find that it was worthwhile enough that you'd consider coming back in a following year, or what was your thoughts about the show?
Yeah, definitely worth it. Financially, probably not, but if I look at it as more of an advertising and marketing thing rather than pure sales, then yeah, it's worth it. And I get to look around and see all the cool stuff when I take a break from the table, so it was worth it to see that stuff.
Cool. The other question I have is probably just more of maybe a company question or whatnot, maybe a two-part question. One is, do you consider an option to have other firms resell your products, or do you want to sell them directly to customers?
At this point, I'd rather sell it myself. There are a few places that wanted to resell, and I can't really stop anybody from doing it, but I'd rather sell directly myself.
Okay.
At this point, if if it takes off and I start selling thousands, then maybe I'll look at that. But right now, it's manageable.
Okay. And are you selling primarily? I think you have like a website. Or do you sell primarily on your website, or do you do like eBay or Amazon or any of the other options, or just primarily the website sales?
On my website and then eBay.
Okay, so you do eBay.
It's worth it to be on eBay because people can search for things and they're not necessarily searching for my product, but then they find it that way.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, Jim has a couple of retro devices he makes too.
Yep. Well, and the reason I ask it, and I'm okay with either one of your answers. I'm just thinking there's I haven't established storefront, but the challenge I run into is time to design new products. And so I'm thinking I may need to start thinking about the idea of, just finding a good product, working with somebody to come up with a variation of it that I can sell in the store and then sell at the store, because designing is taking, there's just not enough hours in the day to do all the different, you primarily are doing interfaces, and there's a whole bunch of people that want disk drive replacements, and then there's people that want audio options and then expansion options and whatnot, and trying to provide full service and be the design team for all of that stuff can get a little bit unwieldy. So, but I have to absolutely respect the idea of selling that way. At least that the quality control and everything is done well. But if you do consider something like that in the future, definitely look some of us up that have storefronts, because it would save us having to kind of push people away to other sites. I don't mind sending people over, but a lot of people are telling me nowadays, they're like, well, geez, Jim, I'd kind of like to do all as one big order, like one shipping amount and everything. It's like, well, you need to go here for this and you need to go over there for that. And I understand, I think they kind of understand, and it's okay right now, but I have a feeling in the next few years, people are going to want to go one place and just get all their little retro computing needs met. So
you almost need like a retro Amazon that's going to be pulling stuff from all over the place and giving people a single point of entry to make their order, and then it's fulfilled behind the scenes and shipped from one entry
place
point
to another. Yeah, I think that there would be value in that. I'm a little leery. I haven't sold on eBay, even though I can. I do have an eBay account. I haven't sold on eBay because, and as much as time is sometimes a premium to design, time's also a premium to ship. And I know people get really antsy if you don't if they don't see a shipping notice like 5 hours after they buy their product on eBay, they're getting you.
Yeah,
they're hovering over that give me a bad score thing on eBay. So I applaud you for selling on eBay, because I've met some potential people that I think were eBay buyers, and oh my goodness. So
there are definite downsides to eBay, especially to maintain your rating. You need to be very fast with shipping and accept returns for any reason. And so I debate.
And that's the thing. I kind of have a philosophical issue. I understand if you're buying something brand new or you're buying something that's contemporary, but my goodness, it's a retro computer. Really? You got to have it tomorrow? This computer's been sitting in a box for 35 years. Yet you have to have your keyboard adapter by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Well, not just the adapter. I want the keyboard bundled with the adapter.
That's right.
I've had a few that thought they were buying a keyboard.
Yeah, you're also trying to compete against Amazon shipping, and it's very difficult to do something like that.
I know.
The problem with eBay is the fees. They can just
Yeah.
It varies on each product that you sell and your product placement, and you can pay more to get it listed higher, and it can tear you up.
Maybe I should do this the other way around. I should ask Matt if he wants to sell my products, and I'll just let him be my distributor since he wants to do it anyway.
Maybe not. Yeah. I think the dealing with support is probably the least favorite part of it, and then actually designing things is the favorite part. So at some point, I will look at distributing through something, especially for international, because the international shipping is so much that if I had someone distributing in Europe or Australia or Japan, then I could send things to them once and they could ship it out locally.
I totally understand, but I would say not to necessarily disagree with you on customer service being a pretty challenging part of being a retro vendor or whatever. It does present some interesting I guess perspective for me, because it's like people say that they go to Walmart late at night so they can feel good about their lives. So this is the right.
I've never heard of that.
Really? Oh, you should. It's a common thing, right? So if you don't wear pajamas or you actually have a full set of clothes or what. But anyway, I don't know if this is the case for you, but sometimes the people that send me a customer service request, the type of thing that they are asking for, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a pain because you have to deal with it. But just the thought processes that they're going through. So, just to cite an example, I had one person send me a product that is an open source product, and I manufacture it, but so do some other people in Europe. This individual paid for Europe to US shipping, which, as you just indicated, is quite an expensive proposition. Sent it to me and had sent me an email and saying, hey, I've had problems with this product. Can I get some help with it or whatnot? I got it here, realized that it wasn't something I sold. And so I said, well, yeah, you can get support for it, but you'll have to get it from your vendor, right? And the person just went off on me like, well, I sent you an email and you told me you'd look at it. I'm like, because I thought you bought it from me, right? If you didn't buy it from me, what in the world would you thinking that I was going to do support for? So I think it kind of makes me feel good about myself to a certain extent. Like, I might be really bad as a customer, but I'm not that bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't buy it at Walmart and try to return it to Best Buy.
That's right.
90% of the time it's fine, and then the other 10% is a challenge. So people will, and troubleshooting things. The number one problem is they have a bad USB cable, but they don't know that. So I have to lead them through, check this thing, check this other thing, and then just dealing with the vintage hardware. Sometimes the keyboard is bad, but to figure that out, we have to go through the whole process of, okay, check all your cables, check this and that in the operating system, and then it turns out that the keyboard just doesn't work.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. The old, have you tried switching it on and off again too? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
Cool.
a whole nother problem there with support, right? That's something that, not being in the hardware business, I haven't even had to consider. So, yeah,
But you get that in the
challenges.
software business too, trust me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've never had to provide tech support for this show, so that's the only product I'm dealing with. So,
Just condolences, that's all.
Apologies. We issue a lot of apologies, but yeah.
Yeah, can I return it? I want to return.
Can I return last week's show?
I am a dissatisfied customer.
That is 5 hours of my life I can never get back, right?
Just return to the Amigo Guys podcast, and then
Exactly. Yeah.
That dumpster fire wasn't high enough. I want my money back.
Yes. All right. Well, how about we shift gears into the VCF wrap-up portion of this? So, and then I don't know, I muted Brian because there was a lot of background noise. Let me see if I can, let's hear what the sound from Glenside is. It's not too loud right now. All right. You guys smell the barbecue going on there in Brian's grill there, the Glenside barbecue?
Yeah, I should have eaten lunch first.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to mute it though. So yeah, we got greetings from Iowa. Alan Huffman has just joined us. James Differendaffer is here. James Differendaffer says, I already want the last hour of my life back. All right. So there we got an RMA return request. So how about we now shift focus and let's talk about last week's event. For those of us who were there, if you want to share those experiences.
Footwear and insoles and
Brian Schubring.
show us the grill.
Brian, can you hear us?
I don't think they can hear us.
All right, well, he's grilling. I muted him. Somehow he unmuted himself. All right, let's try muting that again. I've muted Brian. Show him the RMA. So how about this? Let's go around the room. For those of us who were there, or in any particular order, what do you guys want to recount about last week's event? For either if you watched it or if you were there, what did you guys think of last week's show? Tim Franklin says it was great talking to you guys last week on Facebook. Tim was there from Glenside. A lot of folks from Glenside were there. Anyone you want to volunteer to be the first one to talk about it? Anyone? Crickets?
I can go.
Okay, Jim, being a vendor there in the Commodore section.
That's right. I mean, I've seen the progression of the show, which is probably a view that many folks haven't. We originally were in the downstairs in the basement of the Lombard facility where CoCoFEST has been for a few years now. And initially, I think the part, I think I'd mentioned this in previous years. I'll try not to rehash everything, but I think it's really interesting how the progression of the show went. Initially, it was primarily a Commodore show by folks who just wanted a chance. They were just mainly looking for an excuse to get together once a year and just be, have a nice time together. And the idea of a show just kind of was what they had previously went to when there was an official kind of CoCoFEST or Rainbow Fest type show. And then when that kind of dissipated, they just made up their own show. And then Jason Timmons, who many of you know, kind of the showrunner of Midwest Vintage Computer Festival, came in a few years later and said, I would like to run a kind of overall retro computer or classic computer show. And I thought it was really nice that the Commodore folks were just like, hey, we're just kind of hanging out here just because we wanted to have a weekend to get together and have fun. So sure, go on, bring the rest of your folks in and have a nice time. And then it got significantly larger and had to move out of that facility into the one at Elk Grove that we've been at for a few years. And then of course last year, the Elk Grove facility was just packed. I saw a note in one of the Facebook groups earlier this week that said that even this new facility felt a little crowded for them. And I'm thinking it's nothing compared to the show last year, because the show last year was people were just kind of walking on top of each other, and not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like, gee whiz, there's so much interest. We're going to have to find a larger venue. So I'm glad that they found this venue.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw it earlier in the year, I know I sent some photos to folks. I never thought it would be filled up. I figured I knew they were going to use one of the sections for presentations, which I thought was really nice. And then I figured they had the 3 other sections, and I figured they'd fill maybe 2 of the 3, and it would give us some room for expansion. And like where Matt was, I didn't think any of that space would have anything in it. And those of you who win and those of you who watch the YouTube videos, it was pretty nicely packed.
Mm-hmm.
All the space, probably across the hallway from Matt, was a little light, and then kind of on the other side of the main front doors and in the main vestibule area, there wasn't anything yet. But I can see that all being filled up next year, because Jason indicated that there were people who were kind of on the fence as to whether they wanted to have an exhibit this year, and ended up ultimately deciding not to, but came to the show and then said, oh man, I'm kind of bummed that I didn't have an exhibit. This is the first year where I don't believe I was able to see every exhibit to the extent that I wanted to look at it. There was just so much there, so many different things going on, and there was a lot of new stuff. Obviously Commodore will always be well represented. Coco's well represented. The Apple folks and the Atari folks typically are well represented. But it is, to Matt's point, it's really nice to come in and see what some of the other groups are doing, like the Timex Sinclair. Sometimes I kind of forget that machine, and so there was some interesting stuff going on there. And then some of those really esoteric machines, like last year there was an individual who had the Coleco Vision Atom, which is, that's a different beast, right? And then some of them were very interesting stuff, some of the newer machines. It's kind of hard for me to get behind the fact that now there's some of the late 90s Macintoshes are considered classic machines now, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it just means we're old.
I know, it does. It's like, man, that shouldn't be considered old, but it is, makes the cut. So there was a lot of that at the show, which is still interesting to see kind of I've seen the SE30 or the Mac Plus or whatever, but the pizza box versions and whatnot, the Nexts were really cool to look at. And then of course the mini computer stuff, the FPGA rendition of the Death Star system, that was kind of interesting. It was really interesting. But it's going to become even more challenging as there's more and more stuff, because when I started coming as a vendor, you would put your stuff on the table, and probably you get an influx of customers in the first hour who it was everybody that was going to buy things that day, because they had saved up and they were like, oh, I know Jim's going to be the show, so I'll come and I'll get my stuff. And so you stayed at your booth for probably an hour or two, and then your sales were done. They were good, but they were done. And then you could go walk around the whole rest of the show and see all the rest of the exhibits. Now there's people coming on Sunday, that don't come on Saturday. There's people that come in the afternoon on Saturday, and they're customers. And so you got to kind of man your booth, which is kind of a bummer, because there's so many other cool things to see, but you you need to obviously stay at your spot so that you can talk about stuff and whatnot. I really am having a little bit of a challenge right now in that I'm both a vendor and an exhibitor, and so part of me should be out in the hallway. They're going to probably have the hallway continue to be a vendor space, and part of me should be out in the hallway. And I think Matt's got a good point. Everybody comes in through that way, so it'd be nice to be out there for visibility and whatnot. But I also have exhibits, and so it'd be nice to be in some of the exhibits halls too. So I got to figure out how to deal with that, because when I was in the exhibit hall, people sometimes didn't think the stuff I had on my table was for sale, which was a little bit of a challenge. But then people who figured out that part of it was sale thought everything was for sale. I don't know how many people wanted to buy that console TV, and I don't know how many, right? And I'm like, no way, first of all, you don't have a car big enough to take it home anyway. So,
Right.
But, and they wanted to buy the Vectrex and the Laserdisc player. They were like, hey, are you selling these Laserdiscs? I mean, guys were like looking through them saying, oh, they got some really good titles. Well, of course they do. I bought them, right? So, so that was kind of interesting that, they just thought all the stuff that was there was for sale. And I felt bad because it was a little disappointing. It's like, oh, is that Vectrex? How much do you want for the Vectrex? Well, I'm not really selling it. Oh man, I really want a Vectrex. I'm like, I feel your pain, but I'm not selling mine. So
Just out of curiosity, have they announced official numbers both of attendees and of vendors? Or just how big did the show actually get this year?
Well, I don't know that there's any way to announce totals. They never have in the past because there's no entrance fee, so there's no record of anything.
Okay.
So I don't know that you'll ever have. I can tell you that I know there's more people that were there this year than last. I don't think there was probably 350, 400 people at the show that walked the show. I don't know how many vendors there were. Jason would have that information, like how many vendor tables were sold and whatnot. Seems like there was maybe 80 to 100 vendors that set up. But yeah, it counts for attendees would be a little challenging because they don't actually charge an entrance fee.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a challenge, but it seemed pretty well traveled. I think when we did the VCF West stuff, the VCF West show doesn't look like it's as big of a show, but it seemed to have a little bit more turnout. So I know Mark had indicated there was like 1,000
official numbers, 1,100 actually. The official numbers for both Pacific Northwest and West were 1,100 each.
Okay, so
and they actually
probably not.
No, they know.
Yeah, it's probably not. I didn't think there was quite that many people. There was quite a few, but I don't think it was 1,000 people. I'd be very surprised if it was that many. So it's got a little bit more growing to do.
Yeah, cool. Good perspective there. Somebody seeing it grow, and it's nice to see these things are growing. Like even our little humble event, CoCoFEST, has grown, pretty consistently over the past 4 years. From what I understand, the 2015 one had like less than 80 people, and we've gone from like 100 to pretty much 120. So over the past couple of years, so CoCoFEST has been growing, and VCF has grown. I would agree too that if that was their expanded venue, they were pretty much at capacity with exhibit space and vendor space. So it would be kind of hard to add more to that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
interesting to see what happens next year for CoCoFEST, because it's the 40th anniversary of the Coco.
Yeah.
Oh, we are switching venues next year.
We're going to switch. It's funny because the Color Computer Glenside is. They didn't really necessarily mean to do this, but they were both in the Lombard facility, and then the VCF Midwest move out into Elk Grove Village to Holiday Inn there, and then now they're here at this Clarion Inn. So the 2019 CoCoFEST at Lombard was the last one there, and so the Glenside folks were looking for a new venue, and Jason Timmons, actually a bunch of us, suggested they should look at the Elk Grove Village venue because VCF Midwest had just vacated it, and that hotel was they really enjoyed having the retro computer show there. So that's going to be their venue, and it's a 7,000 square foot venue. And I think the Lombard venue was probably only maybe 2,800, 3,000 square feet at best. So it'll be twice as big, and that'll be really kind of interesting. It's got different rooms for presentation and exhibits. So that'll be a nice expanded view, especially now that it's, like you said, the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
To your point, I know I talked to Jason at the very end of the show this year, Jason Timmons, and I think his challenge and probably his big maybe a little bit controversial thing that he's going to have to do in the next few months is he wants to ensure that, like, he'd love for everybody to come, but he's only got so much space, and he wants to use it as wisely as possible. And he wants to favor new people or new exhibits. So like if you've been there a number of years, he still wants to have you have a presence, but he would prefer to have you not have as big of a presence and open up a table for somebody that's never been, that has something really interesting. So that's going to be that's going to be a bit of a I wouldn't say political, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge for him to go through and make sure that the people who have been the foundation components of the existing show aren't alienated, but at the same time kind of get them to maybe not ask for so much of the space, so that folks like Matt who have not been here before can have a table to show off their new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like growing pains, so trying to manage everyone's expectations and be fair and balanced and stuff too. So that does sound like a challenge.
Yep.
But to their credit, this event to me just seems like this is my first one I attended, but it really seemed like a well-oiled machine. Just the whole thing. So I mean, definitely want to give kudos and hats off to the VCF Midwest guys for having this thing run as well as it ran. I don't recall any issues. They communicate well through their event page and everything else, and just coming in, and I guess the bad part about not having registrations is you don't have a head count, but the good part is you just walk up, you grab a badge, you write your name on your badge, and you're in. So there is no bottleneck on getting in and out of the event and having the space. So it really was it ran so well and so smooth that
I think as Matt indicated, I think there was the big miss this year, and Jason fully takes accountability for this, is he didn't give enough opportunity for folks who were brand new and had never been there before to sign up for tables. And people Matt's not the only one. There was other people who were trying to get into the event and were waiting for the table to open, because there was an email went out saying table registration will open soon, and then they never did. Those of us who had been at the show for a number of years got an out of band email saying, hey, you're a previous exhibitor and we want to make sure there's a spot for you. So I think next year we'll just have to get on to Jason just a little bit earlier to say, hey, make sure you open up the actual registration page so that folks have an opportunity to get in there. I mean, like you said, it's a all volunteer thing, and it's a little unfortunate, but it's understandable, and it was somewhat accidental. But the next year we'll do a little bit better. I will tell you then your point that I think it runs well because you have the VCF trio of people, or maybe there's 4 or 5 individuals, Timmons, Michael Lee, and Jim Leonard, and they did a lot of the heavy lifting. And there's some other folks that I'm not aware of. Jason Compton, who was the announcer through the weekend, he's kind of the he helps out as well. But I think there's a lot of us that are kind of at the next round, next kind of band out, like myself, Robin Harbron. There's some folks from the Commodore space, and so we're tend to be in communications with the leads, and we're like, okay, what do you need, and let us know, and if there's questions, we try to answer them for folks as opposed to like sending everything to Jason. So I think there's a definite group of people that are like, we will do what it takes to make the show a good show and not end up with a whole bunch of people that are angry because they didn't get the right table, or they got gypped on their purchase or whatever. So I hope that spirit continues as the show gets bigger, because that's the challenge when a show continues to get bigger, is there's more and more people. And so you got to have people that are kind of humble in those roles to do that, and just think about it as the goal this weekend is for everybody to have fun, not for me to make money or for me to have some great marketing blitz and overwhelm the rest of the show with my new product or whatever it is. You got to think about it in terms of the show.
Yeah, good points. And as speaking of communications too, that last person you mentioned, they had this whole overhead system, the PA system, where you could hear announcements in all of the rooms. I don't think we've had it that well at CoCoFEST. We've had just a microphone, and the speaker was in one area, but it wasn't necessarily kind of
audible. Yeah, it's
audible across the whole event. So the fact that they had this whole kind of globally expanded PA system, where no matter where you were in that convention thing, you could not help but hear those announcements. I mean, they were loud, right?
That's right.
So I mean, that was helpful. Sometimes it was almost borderline irritating because it was so loud. You were in the middle of a conversation, you couldn't hear the guy next to you while you're talking. You had to wait for the announcement to finish. But if you want somebody to know what's happening and where it's happening, that was a great way for that to happen. So that might be a takeaway that we can try to. I mean, now again, in our new event at CoCoFEST, all being in one hopefully big room, it's going to be less of a challenge. But I thought that was a nice touch, just having that kind of, what they call the VCF radio system that they had going on there. So cool.
Made it seem like more of an event.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
There just as a logistics thing, looks like everybody wants a commercial break.
Okay.
So might want to break into a commercial and then come back.
Well, Ron Delvaux is usually our bladder meter here. Ron, how's your bladder hanging in there?
Well, I did just leave a comment.
Okay, so
about 2 seconds ago.
when Ron has to take a potty break, we know it's time for a commercial break. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So how about we do a commercial for one of the products that appeared at VCF on the color computer side, the Wallaby cable. So we're going to run a Wallaby spot, and we'll be back in time for Ron to go potty. We'll be back, folks.
Hi, it's Chris Boyle, part of the CoCoTALK crew of people.
Hey everybody, this is Bill Noble, co-author of Nitrous 9. You are listening to CoCoTALK Live, the leading live CoCoTALK show.
Good day, mates. This is Nick Marionettes, author of such color computer titles as Donut Disaster, Rupert Rhymes, and Rockstar Pilot. And I am here today to tell you about the world's most fabulous operating system, OS 9. OS 9 and its current incarnation, Nitrous 9, is the most advanced operating system ever created. And what makes it so good? Ease of use. I find OS 9 so incredibly intuitive that I haven't once cracked open the user manual, and yet I've been able to create such incredible games faster than the time it takes to sing Waltzing Matilda. Using OS 9, I expect my next game, Funstar, will be done this weekend and distributed exclusively on ROM cartridge. OS 9 forever.
Any resemblance to actual events to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
Radio Shack has a great gift idea for the whole family. Fast action TV games, and they're on sale. Get this 6-game model for $29.95 or the 4-game model for $21.95. With rising entertainment cost, that's a real bargain. You play hockey, tennis, squash, and more. Easy to hook up and great family fun that lasts all year long. The sale price TV games. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Hi there, this is Mark Overholzer, and you're watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly talk show where you can join in. Hey, come watch us and see what's happening in the world of Coco.
CoCoTALK is brought to you in part by Placeblex Dietary Supplement. Placeblex, we think it works, so will you.
Coco d'œuf, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et dans le pion. Pour le jeu, il n'y a pas d'attente, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion est dans les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre Coco est contrôlable, pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. Coco de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le Coco 2 de Radio Shack. On solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
Coco 2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac, c'est toi et Coco 2.
Hello, this is Grant Leedy with CoCoTALK. Got your Coco 3 yet?
From the makers of the Switcheroo. Wallaby cable, Color Computer 3 dual RGB cable.
Get yours today at cocoman.biz.
Fletcher, I don't need that report tomorrow.
Great, JT.
I need it tonight.
But JT...
Fletcher saved $300 on her office away from the office. Radio Shack's revolutionary Model 100 computer. It's a word processor, phone directory, and dialer. It even communicates with the office computer.
Fletcher, how's that report? Fletcher.
Radio Shack's Model 100. Save $300 and put it to work.
You'll go far, Fletcher. You'll go far.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
All right, Fletcher has gone far. We got a request from Alan Huffman during a commercial break for somebody to translate the lyrics to the Coco Do commercial. I'm pretty sure it it had something to do with the color computer too, right?
Even French people say those words are hard to understand.
Oh yeah.
We've been hard on the trail, but it's been
Le Coco Do.
All I know is dans le sac, in the bag. That's the only thing I've been able to figure out.
Okay. Le Coco Do de Radio Shack. I was able to make out that much. So, and
those were all the top tier commercials in that block, though. entertainment value.
Entertainment value. Yeah. Yes. We got
nowhere to go but down from here.
If you're gonna run a commercial block, though, you got to run your best commercials. So.
Right.
There we have it.
I like how Megabug is very prominently displayed in that commercial.
That's right, Le Megabug.
Yeah, Le Megabug by Le Steve York.
I just can't get away from that game.
It's a badge of honor.
Your legacy.
Problem is you were too prolific.
We did see when we were at Galloping Ghost, we did see a lot of games that were cloned from Steve Bjork games. So we did see clones of Zaxxon. We saw clones of just a lot of games that especially the Datasoft titles. So yeah, like Poo Yan was there, Moon Shuttle was there, Berserk, not Berserk, the other one, the Rampage was there. So a lot of cool games that Steve Bjork made for the Coco we saw at the arcade. So that was kind of cool. That was neat stuff. Who else was at VCF that wants to chime in on some of your just takeaways from the event, especially for those of us who were there for our first times? Like, is Richard still with us? No, the dumpster fire is gone, huh? David, this was not your first. This was your second VCF Midwest, David Ladd?
Oh yeah, this was my first year having a table, and now I'm wishing I would have gotten two. It was trying to exhibit ease of use was interesting. I'll say that. Definitely could have had some help, Curtis. It would have nice to have had a second person. That way one person could walk around and another person could man the table. But I enjoyed myself.
What do you think I hired you for? No, I'm just kidding.
But it's next year. I'm planning on trying to have, if I can get it, I would like to have a couple tables, one for doing soldering work, and then the other one for having a couple Cocos hooked up, because it's just, you can't demonstrate everything that you want to demonstrate off of one machine, and it's just.
Yeah. I mean, we had a fair amount of machines on the tables, but I think VCF West was really well laid out with a variety of machines to show simultaneous demonstrations. Yeah.
Do you think it might be a good idea to sometime have a large screen TV and maybe a recording of a bunch of different things happening that we've done on Cocos continually running, so that you don't have to worry about manning another computer or having a different computer doing stuff? Because it would
yeah, actually, that was one of the things I was thinking of, is for maybe Curtis or someone else that's good with the Nitrous 9 and has comments about the ease of use, to actually put together a video that we could then show off, like the Coco, using Ed Snyder's video player for the SDC, and record the video, convert it, and have it played on the Coco. And then we could have, discussing what is the ease of use project? Why do we need it? You know, different things like that. And then having a Coco set up to do all the sound devices, you know, so that we can run the different programs, show people here's what this sounds like, actually running playable games for these sound devices.
Yeah, 'cause you want both the informational stuff, like a video would be a good idea for that, like running in a loop or something. But you also want interactive booths where the people can come in and try a game.
Yeah, it's almost sounds like we need a listening station where you've got a TV set up where people can put on headphones and listen to some explanations of stuff running in a loop that they can hear, and then they can walk over to whatever they saw in that loop that they liked. They could walk over to that station and try it out. I want to try out this Nitrous 9, or now I want to try out this sound card or something. That's not a bad idea.
That's like what Bruce did with his game. Remember, he had 3 stations set up.
Yeah,
with headphones.
Yeah, with the headphones. Yeah,
that was neat.
Yeah, and the other nice thing is, you know, we had Jason was set up, Richard was set up, I was set up, and Neil was set up right down at the end of the block of tables, so that we had all of our Tandy stuff out and going.
And then there was there was a doorway, and then there was the Glenside had a couple tables too. So we basically had almost one whole wall that we called Coco Row. With lots of Coco stuff in that room B.
Yeah, and I really would have liked some more. I just wanted to show more, but I just didn't have enough stuff to try to cover it all.
You were busy working most of the time too. Like you had your freaking goggles on and you were soldering almost the whole weekend. So it was kind of neat because you had Richard soldering, you had David soldering, Jason was doing some stuff, and even Tom C was too. So sometimes we had 3 or 4 guys all set up with soldering irons working on
soldering
something.
row.
Soldering row, you know. So it was kind of neat to see all you guys there burning the rosin there.
Hey Curtis, next year we'll join them.
So it was neat.
Coco out of solder ball.
Right.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask David, like I know I kind of asked during the show, you know, how much interest was there in the Cocos from people that had not really familiar with the machines, and you said there had been a fair bit. I was just wondering, in the week after now, have we had much follow up, or like if people actually, you know, started, you know, appearing on Discord or joined Facebook? Have we noticed an influx of people thanks to the show?
I myself am not really sure, because I've been, you know, for me, it's nothing like Richard's drive. Geez, Richard had a long drive, but, you know, after I drove all the way home and got home, I think almost at midnight, I was like, then brought everything in, and I think it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock by the time I actually went to bed. And it took like 2-3 days just for me to recover from the weekend.
I think there were a few people showing up in Discord that did mention VCF. So we had 1 or 2 new people join our Discord server because of that.
Okay, because I had seen some new people in Discord. I've seen some new people on Facebook, but I didn't know if that was related from VCF or if it was just coincidence.
And we got Matt on the show today, and hopefully he still hasn't regretted it. So,
you know, it's been a couple years since I've been to VCF and had a booth there, and but I had some very good response and interest. You know, I wasn't showing a lot of stuff, but I had some people who, you know, I think I even had one person who bought a game who hadn't had a Coco, who was considering getting the Coco. So you do generate some interest there.
Yeah, and we had all the signs that Rob Inman had made up for VCF West. So we were showing off all these signs that had little things and little QR codes, and some of the signs said, "Well, ask to see the demo of Sockmaster's Donkey Kong, or ask to see the Pac-Man transcode." And I actually had a guy who wanted to see them both. It's like, "Oh, I'd love to see the real Donkey Kong running on a 6809." So we fired that up and let him see it. And then we showed him the Pac-Man transcode. And so I actually had somebody who was reading the little one sheets we had there saying, "Yes, actually, I would like to see this, or I would like to see that." Jason had an MC10 fired up. So we were representing the MC10, and we were loading the MC10 Pac-Man game off of a real cassette tape. So that was kind of neat to have to do the C load M and, you know, get the software up and running. You know, so it was, I would say that we probably did not do as when I say we, and I'm not putting the blame on David or Richard or anybody because they were working, but I was there, Grant was there, and we were kind of like little butterflies flying around, so we weren't behind the table. So the few of us other guys who were there could have done a better job getting behind the table and being more interactive with the visitors. So for the guys who were there, they did the best job they could. I think VCF West had a much better situation where you had Mark Overholzer and Rob Inman and Tim Lindner and Mikey. You had all these guys who were really there behind the table the whole time, really helping that social interaction. So I don't think we, meaning us guys like Grant and I who were running around drinking, did as much as Mark and everybody else did at VCF West, but it didn't suck by any means. You know what I mean? But it would have been nicer if there were a few more people there who weren't busy working on stuff to help answer some of those questions. And I did it a few times. But we could have done a better job at that, but it wasn't terrible. It's nothing to be ashamed of, So
Steve.
Yeah, I know that's another thing I wanted to talk about is way to improve, for next year at VCF. And I think one thing we've mentioned is that Glenside had a table there, but they didn't actually make any brochures or anything advertising CoCoFEST or.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, that was to me. That was kind of a little bit of a missed opportunity there to maybe recruit some more local members for Glenside and CoCoFEST.
Yeah. Plus, people that are local just coming to VCF just to look at vintage computers and have no idea that Glenside or the Coco exists will actually have a local thing to go to. So I think we have to make sure that gets done next year.
Yeah. Were you going to ask a question, Ron Delvo?
Yes. Steve, you remember how bushed you were after the first run through. You were just totally wiped out and you couldn't do any more or whatever for a while. Why not? Can you rent like a Segway or something? Wouldn't that be great? I mean, that would be a lot easier. You can buzz through, go to another table real quick.
I want to see Stevie on roller skates.
That's what it was? I brought the wrong shoes and I didn't realize it until after walking around, and my feet were just killing me. So I couldn't even walk. It's like my feet were sore. It's hard for me to walk. So I was moving around. I felt like a 90-year-old man the whole freaking time. I'm like walking like a guy with 2 peg legs.
And now you're back to your regular 85-year-old.
Oh yeah. Now I'm back to a spry 85. Yeah.
Well, what do you think of a Segway though in the future for you?
Yeah, that or one of those old men scooters with the basket too, so I can drive around a little scooter, and when I'm shopping, I can just throw things in the basket. So.
Warning flag.
I have a question for Mark.
Grant Leady's here, everybody.
Hey, Mark, I was just wondering, compared to VCF Midwest to VCF West, are there more exhibitors at VCF West than there is at Midwest, or is it the other way around, you think?
No, I think there were more at Midwest. I posted in one of the channels on our Discord server the layout of both West and Midwest, as well as Pacific Northwest. And yeah, definitely, probably the Pacific Northwest and the West were about the same. And it looks like there's about twice as many, if not 3 times as many at Midwest. But there's no way of knowing how many visitors you had because they do track those, because the other 2 are both held at museums. One is the Living Computer Museum in Seattle. The other is the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. So they do have a pretty good idea of how many people actually came to see it, which was 1,100 for both of them.
Which is very respectable.
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, you might have had that many, but there's so many vendors and exhibitors at Midwest. It's like might be hard to tell. Anyway.
Yeah, I know that during the show, at points it was just too darn tight to get through some of those aisles sometimes, especially on the main hallway.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it looked packed. So yeah,
that harkens back to the old Rainbow Fest days too, because back in the 80s, the Rainbow Fest were like that. You couldn't walk. You'd get stuck because somebody was demoing something, and then there was a whole crowd, so you'd have to backtrack and go around to another road to try to get around it.
Yeah, and there's folks like myself who probably didn't help things because I put that big TV in there and I plugged in the Laserdisc player on Friday night, and I popped in a Laserdisc to watch it while I was unpacking some stuff, and all of a sudden we were playing Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there was probably 20 people standing around the TV just completely blocking the thing. So the guy next to me, Glenn Holmer, Saturday morning, he's like, "You're not going to play movies on that all day, are?" And he said, "You're not going to have that thing on all day." And I said, "Well, yeah, I am." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because it's a movie." And I'm like, no, I'll put the computer on it so it won't make such a huge mess of the aisle, because it just completely obliterated the traffic pattern there.
Like at CoCoFEST when we have speakers and stuff, did they have that there?
Yeah, they did. They had a whole separate room for that.
But nobody covered it.
We didn't stream any of the presentations. No,
He'll show up. Jim Leonard's their AV guy, and I just got done watching the ones from 2018, so he'll put another set up for 2019. You'll see all they record them all.
The main headline display was they restored the computer that did the Death Star animation for Star Wars. When you saw them showing the plans when we're going to make our attack, so they had restored that computer, the actual computer that made the actual Death Star on screen for the Star Wars movie. So that was the main big event there. Which is pretty cool.
Is that the one where they bash the side of the monitor to get it bright?
No, that was Sockmaster. So that.
No, they did. They hit it once.
You're probably thinking of Jurassic Park or something. I don't know, but I don't know. But I don't remember them hitting a monitor in Star Wars. I don't know.
They did.
They did.
What was the computer they used for the?
What was it? A PDP-1?
PDP-11.
Okay. PDP-11.
PDP-1145.
Oh wow.
Okay. And they had an FPGA version of it in the exhibit hall too, connected to a CRT TV with the same vector display, and you could turn all the dials and you could rotate the Death Star to your heart's content on that vector-based CRT screen. It was really cool looking. That's the one. That's the one on the stream where they smacked the screen, but that wasn't in the movie. Yeah, when we were streaming that, the guy actually smacked the side of the TV to get it to brighten up. Yeah, okay. Now I know what you're talking about there, Ron. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it looked like a monitor without the shell on it.
Yes, it was. Yes, but that was the exhibit demonstration, which was based on an emulator. They actually showed off the real hardware in the big room on a big screen too. So yeah, but we didn't stream that. So yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. Yeah, so my plan for going there was to be more of a spectator and just enjoy an event instead of having to work the event like we've done in the past. And so. I feel kind of guilty, but I also enjoyed not really having to feel like I was chained down to a table the whole weekend. And
that's
to be able
one
to
of
run
your
around.
tater things, man.
Yeah,
you're a dictator.
Yes, sir.
And
yeah,
spectator. what other kind of tater are you?
That's it. But at least we were able to bring you some coverage between Grant and myself walking around. So I'm glad we were able to bring the event to people who couldn't be there. I'm glad I got to see it, and kind of like what Jim Brain was saying, there was so much it was hard to see it all. I liked seeing a lot of stuff on the room C, the Commodore room. There was some really cool stuff going on there, with like a lot of different clear cases and different colored cases on the C64s and C128. So I would love to see a clear case for the Coco. Saw a lot of neat stuff, a lot of cool stuff in the Atari 8-bit and 16-bit side. I enjoyed seeing a lot of the music stuff. There was this one computer that was an Atari something or another. It was one that didn't have a very long production run. It came out after the ST. It was like the final Falcon. Yes, they had an Atari Falcon there, and some of the game demos and music demos and that thing were really amazing. So I enjoyed seeing a lot of stuff in Hall C. I mean, when I first walked into the Commodore room, I felt like I was going to burst into flames. And here I am. Here's the Tandy guy walking into the Commodore Hall. I felt like a whore in church, But somehow I didn't burst into flames there, and I really liked seeing some of that Atari and Commodore stuff. I like the Apple II clear case that we had in there too. That was really neat. The guy had a clear Apple II with a clear monitor and a clear floppy drive case. So when you can like look and see these acrylic cases and see all the parts inside, I think that's a cool thing to see. I'd love to see some more stuff like that in the Coco side, but it was really neat to see a lot of systems. And the one that I didn't get to look at too much, but I really wanted to, but the guy had like 4 different systems set up, and he had a roguelike game that could play between Commodores, and you could play in a web browser. You could play on different 8-bit systems. It was a multiplayer roguelike game. That was very cool.
That was Leif Bloomquist. He's from Canada.
Okay.
He's part of the Toronto Pet Users Group. But yeah, he does that. That's like his 3rd game that he's made that's multiplayer. He uses network Ethernet cards.
Yeah.
To them all up. Cool.
Did you buy a C64 when you were there?
I was considering it, and I talked to a guy about one, but when I made my second pass, he was gone. He was like, "Well, I'm only here for the day. You got to catch me before I go," and then I missed him. So, still
outside out of a trunk.
There were a lot of C64s there, but not a lot for sale. So, yeah.
So Richard Lorbieski, what did you think of it? Was this your first show there? Or?
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it was my first show. Had a really good time. Sorry, I'm between food right now.
Yeah, Richard was outsourcing his labor to David Ladd.
Yeah, that and Tom. So
yeah.
Tom.
So you went primarily as doing upgrades and repairs. Then you didn't actually go selling product per se, or did you do some?
Not really, because I didn't. I'm doing the house renovation, so I didn't really have any product to sell. And basically, I was just I just wanted to go out there and observe and just get a feel of the show. So I really wasn't pushing any products at all. But I did manage to start a trend of a currency, as you might call it, with brownies. Belle, which is Jim Brain's daughter, was selling cookies and brownies and stuff like that. And a lot of people wanted me to do like these little minor things, soldering. And, I usually don't charge for something really simple and minor. And I just said, but we want to pay you. I said, okay, next door they're selling brownies. Just give me a couple of brownies. So, yeah, I got like awesome. I got like a half dozen brownies, And,
I was going to say, did you gain 30 pounds by the end of the show?
Yeah, I was getting fat.
He resold the brownies.
Yeah. and that kind of goes the way back when I had a computer store. A couple of friends, they didn't really have a whole lot of money, so I said, you know what, go buy me a 6-pack of Dr. Peppers and Chick-fil-A. And so a lot of people started showing up with Dr. Peppers and Chick-fil-A, and at one time I had like a couple of cases of Dr. Pepper. I never went thirsty, but yeah, that's how I started doing that, and it was a really good show. It was a good break from seeing all the different types of machines out there and what other people were working on, and it was a really, really good show, and I'm definitely going to come back next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my daughter appreciates your barter function there.
Yes.
How did Belle make out? Was she the biggest take on as far as sales and gross profit for the?
She, I forgot to ask her what her profit is. We use this as obviously kind of an educational opportunity. So she pays for the ingredients for the brownies and the cookies, and we subsidize the kitchen. And then so she does her old profit analysis, and we've been so busy this week because it's just been a packed week, and we've been kind of tired trying to recuperate from the show, but I need to find out what it is. But we do measure the show in she started measuring the show size in pans of brownies.
I talked to her at CoCoFEST, and she said that their kitchen prices were a little high, and she was thinking of going to Girl Scout cookies next year.
Yeah, that's cute. But anyway, I checked back in 2018's Vintage Computer Festival in Midwest was a 4-pan. So a pan of brownies is 16 brownies. So that was a 4-pan brownie show, and this is a 5.5-pound brownie show. So
wow,
next year's going to have to be a 6-pound brownie show. So definitely, it was obviously it's kind of tongue in cheek, but she always makes that pretty well. I think the key that she brings a little bit of levity to the show because she's there and she's selling her brownies, and she's far enough removed from the retro computer space that she can kind of look at us with a kind of a outsider view. So it's interesting when we go to lunch or dinner and she's talking about the people that are coming by to buy brownies or the conversations they're going after, or just in general how the retro community schedules their munchy breaks, right? Because there's always a big crowd of people right before lunch because they've got stuff they want to see and they're not ready to go to lunch, so they come by and buy food. And then right in the middle of the afternoon, there's the afternoon crowd, and then right before dinner, there's a dinner crowd, and then late at night, everybody gets the hacking munchies. So like 10 or 11 at night, they're always wanting to come over and buy some more stuff. So she's kind of tuned herself into all that. It's just kind of interesting to me to hear her talk about that. And then also that when people are there, they obviously are interested in the food, but then they start to tell her sometimes about their retro computing journey. And so she just thinks that's kind of interesting. Not that she's upset by it. It's always nice to hear it, but she's just like, these people are just telling me their whole story as if, and their landmarks are like different. Like, well, when I was a kid, I had a Coco, and then we moved up to an Atari ST, and then we had a PC. And so it's like all their major milestones have to do with computer systems. She just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that perspective.
So just out of curiosity, how do sales to go at the VCF Midwest? Because I just was wondering, Mark, how well he did, or Matt, how well he did, and Jim and Richard. I know Coco Man sold a couple things. Is selling items a big option of the show, or is it more like showing off your products?
Oh, I sell quite a bit. I think part of it is, and Matt probably sees this, part of it has to do with if people know you're there, right? So when you've been there a number of years, or you've had your presence there with your products for a number of years, they'll come prepared to buy, because they'll be like, well, I was going to buy on the website, but I know I can skip shipping and I'm just going to be here anyway, so I'll just buy it there. So I don't know that you wouldn't have gotten the sale if you weren't there, because they would have just bought off the website. So they just kind of wait to show up and buy it at the show. But I sell quite a bit. I'm actually probably not selling as much now, as because every year for a number of years I had a brand new thing coming out every year, and I didn't have something new this year. So I just had customers who hadn't gotten their things in the previous years. But I sold a considerable amount. Belle probably sells she has probably the largest profit margin of anybody in the entire show. So I don't think I
She's got Apple level profit margins.
Yeah, right. But I think those guys that were out on the main floor that were selling like the PC guys that were selling the older PCs, and then there was a one guy that was selling all of his like luggables. He had like a K Pro and an Osbourne.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. He was selling all those. But I think it all depends on, if it's new, people will buy it because they don't really know. They'll buy it if they think the price is reasonable, and I think the price reasonableness has to do with it being less than $100. If it's less than $100, then if it's less than 100, probably ideally less than 50, then it's kind of like a discretionary buy and they'll just buy it. But if it's older, like that guy that was selling the K Pros and whatnot, he was pretty proud of those machines. And so I don't know that he probably sold a ton of them because he had some pretty high prices on those things.
I think there are some people who are new to this who figure because they've got something rare that it is priceless and they can sell it at a priceless point. There was a guy who wanted to sell a copy of Varlock Chess for $250. And we're like, well, why do you think this is worth this? Well, because I don't see it on eBay, so it's got to be rare. That was his determining factor. He wanted $250 for Varlock Chess. There was another guy selling computers. He had a 16K Coco one he wanted $100 for, and a 64K he wanted $150. And on the last day of the show, they had not sold. I think Eric Canales ended up getting one of them off him for $40 because he's like, yeah, I don't want to have to pack this thing up. But they had something and they didn't know what they had, but they thought it was worth a whole bunch. So when you know what something's worth, and somebody's selling something so far out of the reasonable market price, it just doesn't, it's just not going to sell. So
what about pocket protectors? You guys see any over there? It's retro. Nobody wears white shirts anymore, really, I guess, so you don't need them, but pens don't leak anymore like they used to.
But did anybody buy any computers with soap powder in them besides me?
Jason got a $10 Coco 3. I think that's probably the best deal he got there.
Oh, that is an awesome deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was. I put pictures out there, but it was full of what appeared to be OxyClean or some type of powdered soap product. I got most of it out of there, but it was a fellow was just walking by. I was talking to another guy about Cocos, and he's like, "Oh, I'd love to get a Coco 3." And I said, and I just happened to see one go by in a plastic bin. He's like, "I said, well, goes one right now." And the guy saw us and stopped, and he said he had bought it, and he had bought a bunch of Commodore stuff, and this was in the bottom of it. It was a Coco 3 with the soap powder in it, and a CCR83 and a deluxe joystick and a Black Beauty joystick, and I think a couple cassette cables, but everything had soap powder in it. I know that. So I guess you could say it was very clean.
Cool stuff.
What? And the Coco 3 the power switch was broken, and it had been modified to use a key switch, and a hole had been drilled into the, beside the keyboard to work the key switch to turn it on and off. But I haven't tested it yet or anything. I want to get all the soap power out and check all the wires and everything. I think there was some taped up wires. But for $10, I figured I couldn't go wrong. It was one of those things where I said, well, how much you want for it? And he said, make me an offer. I said, I don't know, $10. And I didn't, but I didn't get to keep the plastic container it came in. He said his wife had to have that back.
That was probably the deal of the show.
Yeah, when I go to these conventions and get-togethers, I don't look at trying to make money out of them, because most of the time you're not going to make a whole lot, especially if you're not been there for several years. And so it's more of a PR type thing. It's people can put a face to the vendor and and to the customers. It's more like what I call press the flesh type of deal than anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to and met so many people, and a lot of people wanted to hear about and see stuff about the Coco. Yeah, I didn't sell a lot. I sold maybe 4 things the whole time, but that was fun. I was enjoying meeting everyone, and there was a lot of people asking about the Coco. I think that's probably the largest presence of Coco that we've had. I'm guessing that they've had at this event since this was my first one. But
yeah. And the cool thing is I didn't starve at all, because I got plenty of brownies.
Oh yes, I got some baked goods myself.
And we kept David Ladd stocked with Diet Dr. Pepper, so he was good there.
Yeah, we kept him. I was bringing him a cold one in the morning. Hey, David, you want a cold one? Absolutely. I mean,
I got paid in brownies.
Oh, I knew. What is the exchange rate on brownies?
A small solder job, it was like 2 brownies.
That's great.
How much would it be for recapping an entire Coco?
That's a pan.
That's a pan job. That's a one pan job right there.
That's a good deal.
So just like start a chicken ranch.
Yeah, exactly.
So just out of curiosity, Matt, since you went to VCF East, how did your sales compare there to VCF Midwest?
More at Midwest, not a huge amount more, but it was definitely a bigger show. There was a lot more stuff to see at Midwest. I don't know if the venue helps a lot, because East is on an old Army base, and so it's spread out in different buildings on this old base. Oh. And having everything in the same room, basically, there's different rooms, but you can walk between them really easily. That makes it much nicer to walk around and see everything.
Cool.
And the other good thing was that I think other shows have more of a division between, okay, you have an exhibit, and then if you want to sell something, you put it in consignments or you register as a vendor. But Midwest, you'd walk around and see somebody had a cool display, and then they were also selling the computer that was on display, or they were selling things that go with it. So that made it a little easier to find something that you want to buy.
It's true. Very true.
Hey, Jim, this might be a good time to discuss how VCF Midwest is different from the other VCFs.
Yeah, well, it's VCF East, as Matt indicated, VCF East, it tends to be a more formal affair. In fact, for a number of years, I don't know if they still do this, but because I haven't been for a couple of years, but the vendor room and the exhibit room wasn't even open early in the morning. So when we first got into the discussions or into the show, the first few hours, probably first 2 hours or so, were just presentations. And so everybody had to go to the presentations. The floor wasn't open. And then the vendor floor for East was you paid for your table and then you sold. Now, West and Midwest and Pacific Northwest, Mark could give more detail there, but there's a percentage fee for all the sales you do, which is kind of an interesting dynamic.
15%.
Yeah, so that's kind of steep in my opinion. So anyway, that's that. But East is probably a more formal kind of component where, like Matt said, you're a vendor, you're in the vendor space. I didn't even bother bringing anything to exhibit because I was in the vendor space, and the venue is kind of chopped up. So sometimes you can get through the whole thing and not realize you missed an entire building of stuff. They do have a museum there on the base, and so they bring out some of the products there. To Matt's point, I don't believe they had a ton of exhibits, but they had probably, I don't know, they probably had at least probably a third of the exhibits that were at Midwest. Southeast it's a newer show, and so it has a lot of exhibits. The exhibits are laid out a lot like they are at Midwest. So a lot of people just, kind of, you can have your stuff, you buy it, or you can show it off and everything. The Midwest show has that, but the one thing I think the Midwest show has that I don't notice at a lot of the other shows is, and probably due to its heritage of originally being a Commodore show, but the Commodore guys really like to, they love showing their stuff off during the day, but they know that the day is a really bad time to just have kind of conversations or whatnot with other people who are at the show exhibiting or whatnot, kind of the diehards or whatnot. And so the show goes in the morning from 9 o'clock until 6, when everybody kind of heads off to dinner. But there's a demarcation line there. After dinner, the people who come back, typically those who are just there for the day, the visitors or whatnot, they're off, they've eaten dinner, they got full belly, they're going to go home or whatever. But then the folks that are at the show come back, and they basically, like for folks who have been at CoCoFEST, they do a jam kind of hack fest session in the evenings. So people come back and they're trying out new projects and they're playing around with things. And so you see a lot of the exhibitors just kind of dig in and like in previous years, they've written demos in the evening, and sometimes they'd work way into the wee hours of the evening. Now they kind of shut it down, I think, at midnight or 1 o'clock. And then afterwards, they have, like those who've been at CoCoFEST would remember, they have the after party, which is kind of everybody gets into the where the little, I guess, cafeteria area is, and you can code or you can chew the fat with folks or whatnot, and that sometimes lasts until 3 or 4 in the morning. That's really fun, and that doesn't really happen at Southeast, and that doesn't happen at East, and I don't know if it happens at Pacific Northwest or West, but I find that a really fun activity to kind of get to know people, because you're not manning a booth, you're not doing that kind of stuff. You can just enjoy the
that happened at Rainbow Fest all the time. The first time I ever met Steve Bjork was actually one of those things, way past midnight at some random person's hotel room, because there was like 50 people in there just all talking stuff.
Yep. So that's to me is, I don't want to over state it, but I really find that fun, and it was it was kind of a rude awakening when that wasn't present at VCF East, because I originally went to VCF Midwest, and then I was invited to go to East, and I went there and I thought, okay, we're going to go eat dinner, and then after we're done, we're going to come back to the Army base and we're going to have a whole bunch of chit chat and whatnot. Well, no, afterwards, everybody just kind of went their separate ways. And I'm sure everybody met in their various hotels and chit chatted or whatnot, but it just wasn't the same as the big group of people meeting together.
Interesting. Cool stuff. Can the guys at Glenside hear us right now? Brian Schubring, are you able to hear us? Let me unmute these guys here. Are you muted? I don't know if he's muted. I'd like to say hi to all the Glenside folks if you guys can hear us, since we're here. I don't.
Hear us now? So look like they were from the
yeah, let me make you guys big
Yes,
here.
you can hear them.
Good job. Yep. Yeah. Well, I see we're big.
Okay, you guys are big now. Hey, what's going on, Glenside Picnic? There's John Mark. How are you, John? There's Tony Pedraza sitting down. Brian Schubing. Back behind him is Eric Canales. How you guys doing there at the Glenside Picnic? And who else is off camera right now? I saw Brian Goers earlier, and Rich Blair was there, right? Who else is at the picnic?
Chris, Brian, my wife Kimberly, they're up sitting outside. That Chris is Pedraza. He's my youngest.
And how's the food? Did Brian burn anything, or is it all grilled to perfection?
That pretty well spoke for it right there.
Look good.
Opinion is what really matters.
Yeah, we're all in our food comas right now. That's a good thing, right?
I was trying to get you to get your mouth watering while I was.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were watching your grilling. Yeah, you're making us all hungry.
It worked.
We have me rice sweet corn.
Oh, that sounds great. How many years has the picnic been going on? As long as Glenside's been going on? So we're going on 29 years of picnics too?
I think at least 20. Yeah. At least 20.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Locations. We even had some people come in from Iowa.
Wow.
Wow.
Good turnout, though, huh?
You should have made it.
What kind of homemade dessert you guys got there for us today?
Watermelon.
Ooh, yummy. Good. Well, hopefully you guys can all hear us, and we want to say hi to all you guys there at Glenside, and we appreciate all you guys do. It was good to see a lot of you at VCF Midwest this past weekend. I think when we were talking about some of the neat things that were on display that you don't see all the time, Henry Reitveld, I don't know if this belonged to Henry or if it belonged to one of you guys in Chicago, but he actually had the Tandy Vision, which is the Radio Shack's rebranded Intellivision, but it had a musical keyboard attachment on it where you could actually play the keys through the Intellivision thing. Whose setup was that?
Who was at the table with me?
Was that Henry Reitveld's?
I don't know.
He was one of our 2 exhibitors.
If that's the same one that was at Tandy Assembly, Henry had that at Tandy Assembly last year.
I had not seen that before. I had not seen a musical keyboard attachment for a game console. I thought that was kind of neat.
It's kind of like a free version of Rock.
I lost you at the end. It's a kind of like what now?
Early version of Rockstar.
Early version of the Rockstar, the Guitar Heroes and stuff. Yeah. Salvador is confirming that because Salvador says yes, that was Henry. So Henry brought that. Henry came down from Canada for one day to be at that table. That's dedication.
He was showing off the Dicom phaser light gun.
Yeah, he had the Iron Forest running on the Dicom light gun on a Coco 3 as well. And I think that was on Saturday, and then Sunday Brian was there, the Music Man, playing some Coco MIDI music and whatnot.
Yeah, that was one unfortunately I missed. I didn't get a chance to see that.
Yeah.
Mind you, I have one here, so I guess I don't have to. But
Cool stuff. Well, I hope you guys are having a good time on the picnic. We're glad we got to be able to show it. Is this the first time in history that a Glenside picnic has been live televised on the internet?
Yeah, the picnic itself, yeah, I think so.
So history has been made right now, folks. We're live picnicking on the internet. It's not just for cat videos anymore. So good job there.
I didn't even see an MC10 there.
Next year we are going to push one of our developers to be able to teleport the food to you guys on the other side.
Excellent.
Ah, now you're talking.
So we're going to push them.
I'll take 2 hot dogs and a burger. I'll just put my order in now.
Yeah, right.
All right. I'll put it out in front of the camera, and there you go. You try to eat that.
I'd like to second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Get the teleport link up going to Australia as well.
Yeah,
David,
right.
they'll have to send you upside down cake.
Yes, for you Australians. Cool. Well, I think we can unanimously agree that VCF Midwest was a great event. Next weekend is Tandy Assembly. Maybe we can get some updates on that after the break. I'm not sure what events come after that. Tandy Assembly is in is it still September? It's still September, right, when we have Tandy Assembly?
Yes.
And then how many events do we have within the calendar year? How many retro events around at least the United States are left this year after Tandy Assembly?
United States, don't know of any. There's Canada show in December.
Yeah, I believe Tandy Assembly is the last one in the United States.
What about the Commodore show, or is that next year?
Well, that's the one. It's in December.
In December, the World
Toronto.
of Commodore Expo thing in Canada?
Correct.
Yeah. Speaking of Canadians, we saw Neil Blanchard this weekend too. So some more.
And that's a show he usually attends too, isn't it?
Yeah. So Neil had an interesting display. He had his bulletin board systems, right? Internal Affairs BBS, and he had that running on a Tandy 1000. Was it HX? And then he had
HX.
And then he had another one that was like a Tandy 3000 or 4000, like a big AT tower style Tandy
4000.
system. It was a 4000. Yeah, that was a neat setup he had running with his BBS running on those. So that was kind of cool. So
now, was his BBS running locally there, or was he actually logging in?
Probably doing one of those Wi-Fi modem type things.
Yes, he was. I spoke to him.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was also demonstrating the actual BBS software, so people saw what it was like from the SysOp side, or if he was just demonstrating logging.
Honestly, I don't know. If that I didn't really question him that much on that. he had a few other demos running on the Tandy 1000 HX, so a couple of different games that would show off Tandy graphics and Tandy music and stuff, like some King's Quest and a few others. Arkanoid, right? So it's kind of cool to see the Arkanoid of Tandy graphics and Tandy sound. Who else was? Jim O'Keefe was there, right?
Yeah.
Another member of Glenside. And the name is escaping me right now, but he is... he had a bunch of these Tandy computers that were the Tandy relabeled ones.
Oh, Grumpy X is his online handle. Malcolm. I can't think of his last name. But yeah, he had the Model 2s, a blue Model 2 and a Model 4 and a Model and a white, or Model 4 and a white case that was painted. It was weird.
What is the story behind those? Like, who rebranded them and what was the purpose?
He can tell you more. Somebody should get, so assuming, I'm almost positive he'll be at Tandy Assembly next week, and somebody needs to just ask him that question. He told us about it, why they would do that, and because there's a whole bunch of, I think because that was their business computer. For a long time, like, way back when, they had the Tandy 10, which was not something they made, but they sold. And then the Tandy Model 2 was their business computer, when you really want to graduate. And it was really expensive. It was like $10,000. And I think companies would buy the machines or order them rebranded and then sell them with their own software or whatnot. And so I think that's what it was, because you bought remember back in those days, you bought a whole system from IBM. You didn't just buy the PC. You bought the whole accounting package from whoever, and including the PCs and monitors and terminals and all that. So he had more of a story about it. I just thought that was nuts that he said that was nuts that they had taken the front bezel off of that Model 2 and had painted it blue and then put it back on. It was just a ton of work. I'm like, really? Like anybody cares? But maybe they did back in the day.
No, actually what they did is they did it in the factory. And
oh, really?
Yeah, they had their own little paint shop, and we would get those orders like that, and they would get, the customized orders, and that's what we would do, and then assemble those and then ship those out separately. But it was exactly just with the way you described it. It was a customer specific order that we would do at the factory.
Interesting.
Who were you working for at that time, Richard? It was
and Paul Fiscarelli gave us his full name. It's Malcolm Ramey. Yeah. And I saw him at the first Tandy Assembly. And speaking of somebody who was there this year, who was also at Tandy Assembly, who just was here as a visitor but not an exhibitor, but Alan Hightower was here this year. And at the first Tandy Assembly, he had an impressive display of all these the histories of all the Tandy computers, from the Tandy 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000, 6000, all those displays. And he had little Model 100s and little handhelds and laptops. And he had every system with the right monitors and all kinds of other stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the displays that was giving us some power issues earlier in the event at the first Tandy Assembly, because there was a tripping breakers and whatnot, so they had to work on that. So Alan was there, and he was just kind of visiting but not displaying anything.
Yep.
It's a good thing Tandy Assembly doesn't allow the mini computers. You throw a couple PDPs in there, you guys would have had no power left.
Right. Well, when they looked at the venue, that was a big thing in June when they looked at it. They have a big 220 3-phase thing at the back, because some of those minis, they need some pretty hefty power requirements. So they had that, but that's the reason that room had to be the last room had to be the mini computer room, because that was the only place that the heavy duty power was available at.
Yeah.
I know you guys trying to wrap up, but I do think you guys didn't note this or realize this or whatnot, but Midwest, I think, is the only one of the shows that has done, they want to do a huge thing about telecommunications. And so this year they had their own PBX system set up in the fourth room D. They had like a circa 1980s switchboard, right? So they had, you could do real modem dial outs and connect up telephone lines and whatnot, which is basically a black art in my opinion, but it's all kind of like Bell stuff or whatnot.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of people that were doing that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the shirts. No, I don't have the shirt. I bought a couple of their shirts. And so actually I think the shirt from this year had the bell on it. It had the bell icon on the VCF West 14 shirt. This is their 14th anniversary. So yeah, I thought that was cool. When I walked into that room, because I'm a network guy, it reminded me a lot of network equipment. So a lot of that old telecom stuff looks like what you see in, it's just a different form of communications now. But, switching is, now we have data switching, but back then it was voice switching. But looking at some of the old telecom stuff in racks, it looked like a lot of network gear.
Was there a lot of Nortel stuff, which is a great Canadian company until they went under?
Yeah. Hell no, I'm a vendor. I do know though that last room, oh my goodness, that they set the air conditioner to what, subarctic in that room? It was so cold in that room.
Oh,
I mean,
so
I
you
know
guys
they had
did
to
have
have
Nortel there, because then it would have been up in the Arctic in Canada here.
Yeah.
Hey, it's right in Ottawa, or used to be. What kind of is?
And we one of their cable manufacturers here in Saskatoon. So.
Cool stuff. Well, I mean, let's move on to news. We'll take another quick commercial break. We'll move on to news, and then as more memories pop up, just feel free to interject more VCF stuff. But we're gonna do a Coco Thoughts. We got a request for the Coco Thoughts with that tied into the Fletcher commercial. So we're gonna kind of go out on a Coco Thoughts. We'll do a commercial break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thanks, everybody.
And now, Coco Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. On holidays, Uncle JT would entertain us with stories of his business conquests and his assistant who would meet any deadline that he imposed, no matter how ridiculous. Well, until she shot him in the face, that is.
Hey, have you got your Coco 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home. Instant loading program packs turn any color TV into an exciting game arcade. And there's more. The color computer is an educational aid, a home management tool, an up-to-the-minute electronic information service. The programmable, expandable TRS-80 color computer from $399 only at Radio Shack, the biggest name in little computers.
Hi, I'm Bruce Moore, and this is Jacob Moore, gotcha. And we are the Forest of Doom guys, and the Coco Forever guys, and we're at CoCoFEST, and we love Stevie Stroh.
Imagine a different world. A world where Tandy Corporation has the upper hand. Where the Coco surpassed all competitors. And all you have to do is travel back in time without making a single mistake.
Coco Forever.
How does it feel? I'm still believing.
You definitely are in this office.
Yes, you're too kind, and thank you.
You want to grab some food before we head back and look at that Alt Reality OS9 module?
It's only 40 years past due, but yeah, sure.
How does it feel? I'm still believing.
Radio Shack, America's technology store.
Computer shopping has never been better at Radio Shack. Here's proof. Our new ultra-high-performance 386SX 20 megahertz computer with 85 megabyte hard drive, only $12.99. And it's from Tandy, manufacturer of the best-selling PC compatibles in America. Or get a 286-based Tandy home office computer with color monitor and hard drive, only $899.95. Shop your friendly nearby Radio Shack. Great selection, superior service. Nobody compares.
And I'll take a quick moment here to thank our patron sponsors, too, who sponsor us every month for all of our high-quality production costs, handling all our expenses like $5 ukuleles and whatnot. So how about we give a big thank you to Al Hartman, Alan Huffman, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donahue, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, DeBruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Disney Saints fan, Eric Canales, Fedor Stamen, and Grant Leedy, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, and Ken Reichard and Kyle Etter, Malfunct, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Richard Lorbieski, Rob Ianman, Steve Bjork, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, the Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C., and Tom S. Thank you all for helping keep the bills on and keeping the lights on and all that good stuff. We're back with more Coco Talk. We have been talking about VCF West. We've been talking about keyboard adapters for retro systems. Been talking about all kinds of stuff, and there's still people here, so we haven't put them all to sleep and bored them all to death yet. So thanks for still being out here in the live chat. Dragon Bites is out here. Alan Huffman is here. Salvador Garcia is here. Paul Fiscarelli, Al Hartman, Vocal Studio, that's DeBruce Moore, and Mark Overholzer, and Lloyd Thompson was out there, and Terry Steen was in the live chat, and Tom C. from Jersey was here, also at VCF last weekend. Mr. James Diffendaffer was in the live chat. David Lord, Explore VR was here earlier. Matchy was here. And Terry Steen, author of Balloon Fire and Gray Lady. Let's not forget Retro Innovations were there. Retro Innovations starting off with great trolling at the top of the show. Great way to start off the show. So we're all here. We're live. We got some news to talk about this week, so we're going to have our foreign correspondent, L. Curtis Boyle, go over news with us, what's been going on in the world of retro. So, L. Curtis, I think...
je m'appelle Curtis, et toi? You said foreign correspondent, so I was going to do the French.
Yes. And of course, I'm showing off the wrong screen right now, so how about we go over to here? There we go. So we're going to go full screen here with L. Curtis Boyle in Canada. And
I will do the old sharing trick.
Absolutely.
Got the screen.
We got the screen here, L. Curtis.
Hey, so first up, we got a couple of Jim Gerrie updates, of course. Because what would a week be without a Jim Gerrie update? So the first one here is, and he actually did 2 videos for this. I'm only going to show the second one. So he did one called Alpha Force, which is kind of a Targ-like game with some changes that he's done.
Okay.
And he published one earlier in the week, which I had all queued up. And then he published an update where he sped it up and added some alternating levels, and he added some new gameplay features and stuff. So I'll just show that here. And there's not any sound worthwhile playing on this one, so I won't bother with that. But
in the MC10 does not have a sound chip?
I believe it has a Dorito. Cool Ranch Dorito.
And this is interesting. We have letters moving. This there were games like
Targ.
this. Targ, okay.
Yeah, Targ.
Yeah, where you have to
there are some differences. Like the ad sign
shoot down the hallway to shoot. Was that right? Yeah.
Now, the letters are your opponents, and the ad sign, one of them is you, and that's the one that's firing.
Yeah.
The other ad is your companion thing, but it can get killed, and you can kill it by accident yourself. That's not hard.
Okay,
he's added some gameplay elements that are kind of cool. And then as you finish the levels, he changes the background colors. You can kind of tell, at a glance what level you're on. So kind of an interesting take. He's got some nice innovative things here compared to Targ. I mean, as you see when you shoot the aliens, too, they get put in the upper right corner so you can see which one's bagged already. So.
Couldn't he have just shifted a palette register for that color change?
Not on the MC10.
And not on the Coco either. So.
Oh, Coco 3 you
got. So. All right, so it looks like he's getting hunted by the letter A right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat.
And that companion thing brings in a whole new dynamic, too, because you can't shoot it yourself, and you have to protect it from the aliens from going after it, too. So it's...
Okay, neat.
It's got some pretty good elements compared to Targ. So cool.
Neat.
Cool game. So next up is the next one he did. He did an update to his Space Rescue, which is kind of a clone of the Lunar Rescue from '79. We showed that a little bit earlier, but he's sped it up a little bit, and he's added the moving star field, which kind of matches the arcade during the descent, amongst a few other things. He's got a list on the on his little comments on YouTube. There's some of the other extra things he added in. So let me just fast forward it a little bit.
Are these all purely basic, or are they a combination of basic and assembly?
Most are basic. There's a couple of, like his 3D maze game we showed last week actually does have an ML routine for drawing lines, for example. But mostly they're basic. But in this one, like, he didn't have the starfield moving before. You just kind of floated down, and now you actually got to, kind of steer in and do it.
No, neat.
I still like his little animation with his running X, Y, see the legs move.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just thought that was cool.
Oh, so you have to shoot your way through those things.
Yeah, and then dock back to rescue your human. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. A lot of elements to it.
Yeah.
I was watching Richard Lorbieski play the real lunar lander at Galloping Ghost this weekend.
Yeah, actually, I think we caught that on the video.
Yeah, that was
I saw
neat.
that. He's a skilled pilot.
Yeah, I love the subwoofer in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cool little
Yeah,
game.
it's cool. It's amazing what you can do with limited graphics and still make something fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
This is back when gameplay was the important part and not the fact that you could clone the
Yeah.
last 20 years of 3D shoot 'em ups.
Like Micro Overholzer does not need to get on his magnifying goggles to see the pixels in this game. Here, so.
I wouldn't even get distracted soldering my own hair with this one. So.
Yeah, neat.
Imagination required.
Yes.
If you remember from last week, I did the Battle of the Ports, and they did Silpede, where they kind of condemned the Coco version pretty badly.
Okay.
Which deserved compared to the other ones. This time he did one with Thexder. This one he was more impressed with the Coco version. He said it was a pretty good port. So,
Okay. Well, he's in the minority because I wasn't that impressed with the Coco Thexder. So.
Well, part of that maybe because comparing it with, say, like the Apple II version or something.
Or like the Tandy 1000 was my benchmark because of the background music and stuff, The one thing I just didn't care for was that when the ship was shorter, like, they had to squeeze it into like half the width of the spaceship on the Coco. It seemed like, anyways.
On the other hand, the Coco had nice pure colors on it. Some of the other ports here had this kind of cross hatchety looking thing.
Yeah.
Like the Famicom did, the MS-DOS version did some of them. And to me, that just looks bad. Like it looks like it's trying to skip scan lines to speed it up or something. So, what the heck this is doing here? Go away. So there's the Coco version. And he has this nice little clip thing at the very end, too, that I didn't show on the Silpede, but he did do it on there, too, where he actually puts all the different versions on screen at once. You can kind of compare them all.
That's cool. That's actually cool, right? So now you can do a real good comparison.
Now, one thing I will say that the Coco version was lacking, and this is because I had to fit in the cartridge, is that it doesn't have as smooth animations for walking or transforming. Like it's kind of sudden jarring. It doesn't have this running legs and stuff. But as far as speed and color wise, it holds its own.
Yeah, and of course the what not everybody has access to, but when it was ported to OS 9, they made it even faster.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the few commercial games that actually are on OS 9.
And when Alan DeCock did the port, he said it looks like the game was originally written for OS 9 because some of the structures are set up like an OS 9 program.
Huh.
So it might have been originally planned for being a disc game, and then Tandy probably figured they can get a heck of a lot more sales if they crammed it on a cartridge.
Okay.
And maybe that's why the extra levels were lost. Maybe there was a full version. I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool.
This one here, I know Rob Inman had posted these, and I'd caught them a little bit before he did. A guy, and I'm not sure, I think his name's John Day. He's ShareSquid on YouTube, who's doing the high score challenge of Coco games for September, and he has two up that I've seen so far. So the first one is Canyon Climber.
With backward colors.
With the wrong colors, yeah.
Yeah. I have to give him credit though, because playing at the speed he got to, because he was up to like Canyon 10, and everybody's seen what it looks like at the beginning. So let's just fast forward here.
Yeah, because this gets progressively faster.
Yeah, especially the arrow shooting screen is just nuts.
So now he's just trying to get to be able to detonate. And he's got one more he's got to get before he can detonate it. His last life. Can he do it? Yeah, I remember playing this game trying to get to more than a handful. I think I made it through about 3 or 4 rounds, and then it just gets insanely fast.
And Steve Bjork, I was going to ask you, what's the highest level you ever got to on this?
Oh, I think it was about 8.
Those arrows are insane. Those arrows are insane, man.
I just, when it came to this particular game, I kind of let James kind of take the lead on the design. And I said, hey, your name's going to be on this game. Because back in those days, him and I worked together, and he was usually do art, testing, and some routines in the game. I did the main game engine, come up with the main routines and like that. And he just, he tests the game so much that he knows every single nuance of the game. And of course, he has to make the game challenging. Guess what? He's got to make it incredibly fast so it's unchallenging for him after playing it day after day, week after week. And I kept on telling you're making it too fast. And he says, no, I'm not. See, watch this. I'll go through and see, I made it to this, I made it to level 12, and I'm going, you and God are about the only people who are going to be able to do this.
It is insanely fast. And that's one thing when I watch some of the other versions, like especially like the Atari 800 version, it just seems pathetically slow compared to the Coco version.
Well, so that's the other thing too, is a lot of the games that were coming out for the Coco, they looked incredibly slow compared to the counterparts that were done on other machines. And he said, I want to make this game the exact opposite. I want it really fast.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
And yep, he did. That's not one of my favorite games to play, but it's incredibly fast.
This is a situation now where would anybody deny this game is not heavily inspired from Donkey Kong? We all agree this is a Donkey Kong inspired game.
I would say so.
It's got elements of it for sure.
Well, I mean, listen, look at that level right there. Is that not the first level of Donkey Kong? Climbing ladders, getting to the top.
Yeah.
Right. The canyon phase is like the rivet phase where you have to pop all the rivets, right?
Yes.
So this is a Donkey Kong derivative, but rather than it being a one-off clone like many Coco games, where this became its own thing. So Canyon Climber was a cross-platform title. We had Canyon Climber on the Atari and on the Apple and on the Coco. So this is an example of a derivative, borderline clone of a game becoming its own cross-platform title, which is kind of interesting when you think about it.
Now, the game was originally developed on the Coco, then ported to the other elements.
Oh.
But the guy that did the Atari version went into some database and says, I created it. And I went through and I corrected the database, and I said, reason why I know? Because I and James Aaron created the game. He ported. And he went back in there trying to change it again, and he got locked out. But no, the Atari guy tried to take credit for the game.
Jeez.
Well, since you're that close to the source of it, Steve, what would you say the inspiration for this game was?
Its inspiration was a lot of different games. Donkey Kong might have been part of it, but there's other games that are out there that had different elements that were taken like that. So in all respect, compared to something like, I don't know, Clowns and Balloons. Clowns and Balloons was a definite derivative of a couple of arcade games.
Circus from Atari and
Exidy had one too, right?
Yep, and the Exidy game. Those were, it was definitely based on that. But this one here was taking elements that were derivative of a lot of games and putting it in there. Yes, some of it appears to be like Donkey Kong, but I think that's because you're so familiar with Donkey Kong. Now you're going, oh yeah, these are similar. Well, but if you were to look at some of the other games that we were looking at, you say, oh, this element's more based on something else. Couldn't tell you what it is anymore. That's going back 30, 40 years.
The first two screens to me seem to be really just very closely resembled to the first two screens of Donkey Kong, but the third one with the birds dropping is pretty different.
Yeah. So it's but still, that was based on some other game too, as far as you're trying to get through an area and you got people dropping on it. I mean, when you're playing the game Crazy Climber, you're trying to climb up the side of a building, but you got birds trying to drop on you. Well, we got birds trying to drop to you too on that third level of Canyon Climber.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all depends on, are you an exact copy? Yeah.
Fair enough. Yep. Cool. But yeah, it's cool to see. That game definitely got hyper fast real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never been up as high as this guy's gotten in my entire life. So,
Well, see, I always like to have my games locked into the game frequency of the video monitor. In other words, I use the 60 hertz to time the game. I don't like my game to speed up and slow down based on the action. James liked everything just to go really fast, and if there's a lot of things on the screen, of course you should go slower because there's a lot of things to respond to. But when there's less things on the screen, the action should be faster.
yeah, and some arcade games do that. I mean, that was the basis of Space Invaders. When you've got all the invaders on the screen, it's going slow.
Yeah.
And then once you whittle it down, they get faster and faster. So I mean, that was using the arcade too, that same technique. So I think both are legit depending on the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
But the one thing he didn't do that I kept telling him to do, but he wouldn't do it, is that you should slow down the speed after you die.
Right.
Like what I did in Popcorn. Is, you're building up and it's getting more and more difficult. But if you die, that's because things got worse, too challenging for you. So back it off just a little bit. So when you start again, you have a chance to build up, get the momentum going. And then when you get to that point that you died before, you've got your skill level back up and you're not frustrated from dying and you can move on. Where this game here, I trust you. It's like boom,
throttling.
boom, boom, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kept telling you, don't do that. Don't do it. No, I like it this way.
Okay.
Obviously, this guy though, I mean, John Day here, he's good enough at it. He gets through this pretty good. So
yeah, 150,000 was the high score. Pretty good.
Yeah, I've that's way beyond my high score.
Yeah. Cool.
Of course, James Karen is the guy I keep talking about that worked on some Atari 2600 games and went crazy after that. And when he was working for me, he would have to keep the doors open because fireballs were chasing him. Yep. Those are the thought processes of your programmers from your youth.
All right, what's
I'll
next,
be doing
Curtis?
that soon with ease of use. Actually, I think too. You see me running away from fireballs at CoCoFEST. That's what's going on.
Yeah. What's next in the news, Curtis?
Well, he did another one. He decided to do Galactic Attack.
Yeah.
High scoring Galactic. Does this one get progressively faster too?
Yeah, and the aliens attack more.
My newest YouTube subscriber, Dave.
And one thing I wanted to mention on Canyon Climber and on Galactic Attack, both when these games were played and people were getting these high scores back in the day, that was with the Black Beauty joystick. Can you imagine trying to do that nowadays?
Amazingly bad sound effects. And tonight I'm going to try to get really fast, just like Canyon Climber.
Yep.
If you kill all the enemies.
He's got a running commentary too. There's your night attack.
Night mode gives you more points. So we want to stay in this as long as we can. Which we almost did. But that was good. That's a good start.
Yeah,
simple sound effects. Who made this? Was this a Robert Kilgus game?
Shortly.
No, this is one of the
Oh, are you kidding me?
image producers.
Oh, image producers. That's right. That's right.
Though Glenn wasn't sure exactly who did this particular one.
Fun and games.
It had TIE fighters, so you got to give it that, right? So
yeah, definitely milking the Star Wars.
Just right around the corner.
So it's kind of a Galaxian with TIE fighters.
Some speed.
Yeah,
the speed
much less aliens on the screen than Galaxians, but the entire wave of 8, once you get to the later levels, all comes down at once.
That was amazing.
Like that. Like there's no formations of just 3 or 4. It's like the whole darn swarm comes.
That's crazy.
And a couple of neat little animations when they like flip around and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they come down in waves and like that. It's very well done.
Pretty insane.
I love how it starts
4K required for the cartridge version, so.
And he died. 12,000. Not a bad high score.
Yeah, not too bad.
Show him how it's done, Stevie.
Yeah, I just heard about this Septandy thing recently. I'm like, what the hell is Septandy and why? So, I mean, I'm glad people are doing it, but I'm thinking to myself, dude, I've been making Tandy videos for like 5 years now, and I do a weekly Tandy show. So I'm glad other people are doing it, but I don't feel like I need to do a very specific Septandy thing just because somebody else has hashtagged it. I think I've done enough Tandy.
I think he wanted to challenge other players to see how they do.
Absolutely. I'm not against it, but I'm like, well, why is this Septandy thing? I'm glad the interest is out there, though. So
a lot of YouTube channels and like that have like some sort of October thing for their Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
It's a way to goose the ratings.
Sure, why not? If it raises awareness, that's a good thing.
Bruce Moore mentioned in the chat here, run the video on mute while talking. Was it still too loud? Because
No, I think when we spent a long time talking about Canyon Climber, but it was a paused thing. So I think maybe he just wanted to see something visually moving. We're past that at this point.
Oh, okay. Just noticed it. Now this one here, I got to ask you guys a question before I show this video here. So this is a guy, FitFo is his name on YouTube, and he's doing a sleeper build. Have you guys ever heard of a sleeper build? Because it was a new term to me.
No, never heard of it.
Anybody else on the panel? No.
Sleeper build.
Because apparently it's a thing where people take some old 8-bit machine or something, and then they take the case and then they put a modern machine into it. And that's the whole point of the sleeper build, is that you're supposed to do this upgrade of a really old machine with modern equipment, not to run emulators or anything, but just to make a modern machine. So
is it like a repack?
Yeah, repack of a modern machine into an old
case. Okay.
I think there was a Commodore computer in a Commodore case. It was like a modern PC for doing that.
Well, he said this is a common thing according to him. Maybe in this specific niche circle it is. I hadn't heard of it before. That's why I was wondering if you guys had.
Negative.
Hardware areas than I am.
They must be taking it off of an offshoot of what they do with cars. Take a clapped out car but put a high-end engine in it, take it to the drag strip.
Yeah, because he takes it. Go ahead.
There was a model. Was it a Model 4? The guy that put a PC into a Model 4 with an LCD monitor in it and everything.
And that's a perfect size case. You got plenty of room in that thing.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was on. We showed that on this show, didn't we? I seem to remember that.
Yeah, I think it got shown during the walk around. Anyway, this apparently is a thing he's been done before on other machines. He's doing the Coco now, but the difference on this one is once he gets it done and finished, he said if you leave comments and just leave him, feedback and stuff, he's going to not auction it, but give it away at the end of it. This video here is only part 1 when he's just learned how to take a Coco case apart. He didn't know about the screw under the warranty sticker for a while there.
Let's see it.
But he's planning on giving this away with the upgraded machine for free to whoever puts it in. So he kind of goes into a detailed description of what he knows about the Coco.
An older computer,
and explaining about the sleeper thing.
The older it is, the better it is going to be as far as the sleeper build. And it works a little bit like race cars.
Okay, like race cars.
Build a race car, and it will be a sleeper build. It'll look like a regular, 1976 Chevy pickup truck, and they'll put a Ferrari engine in it.
Okay, that's the explanation right there.
Like that. More or less, what I will be doing is putting a Ferrari engine inside of this computer.
Anyway, I'll fast forward a bit so he's actually.
Yeah, let's see the working on the Coco. Oh, silver Coco too.
Yeah, F board I think, if I remember.
But if you work on anything electronic, you got to get one of these things. They're just.
You can probably put an ITX board in there.
The one I have is I believe.
Yeah, this first video he hasn't actually put anything into it. He was just taking it apart and then kind of out loud speculating like what he's going to put into it.
Okay, we'll fast forward a little bit.
You got room for power supply and stuff. So
yeah, you got a decent amount of room in the Coco. There we go. Nice little time lapse here.
This is where he's trying to figure out where that extra screw is that's holding it together.
Now he's voided the warranty. Oh no!
It's not Gerrie anymore.
Dude, use a power screwdriver. It's faster and easier.
Hashtag thug life.
He just killed the value of it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was funny though because you were watching the time lapse and you could see these just getting frustrated.
Yeah. It's clean. That's a very clean Coco on the inside there.
Yeah, it's like an F board, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an F board.
Yeah.
That definitely got a lot of room in that case there.
Yeah, so he kind of goes a little bit of explanations there, and then he's kind of
pondering. Yeah, had not previously heard of the term sleeper build, but when you
I had neither.
So you take the Coco motherboard and stick it into an Alienware case.
that would turn a PC into a sleeper.
One of those USB keyboard adapters. And...
Yeah.
And then basically at the very end here, he's talking about the fact he's going to give away the thing, but he's also talking about what posts he has to cut out to fit certain, power supply bits or bits that are on it. So
it is a cool case. It's kind of a shame to waste a Coco case, especially the old silver ones, but it's not like you can't still find them, but it just seems like it's an abomination at some point too,
Yeah,
so.
that's one of the reasons I put this on here, because it's not really a Coco per se project. It's based on the start of Coco, and then it goes to something else.
I would be curious to know what.
If this was anything you guys were interested in or had heard of before. I had not.
But I'd like to see what he ends up with. So yeah, keep us in the loop on that.
Yep. No, I'll keep looking at it. So this is part one, and part one of a question mark as he puts on there. So
I wonder if it keeps the chiclet keyboard.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to see. From the sounds of it, he sounds like he's just basically keeping the case as his current plan, but maybe that'll change as things go. I'd be interesting to see who wins it too.
Yeah. Cool.
You get in touch with him and find out what he wants to do with the Coco hardware.
Okay, now is this the same guy that started the new podcast too?
Yes, this is actually kind of the first real episode, but it's not officially one of the episodes, but this is him playing Kron.
Yeah.
Using an adapter on his Coco 3. Now, his digital adapter, because it's the digital stick, only has left, center, right. So it only has 3 positions. And Kron has the 4 levels of Tron you got to select by moving your joystick left to right between 4 positions. So we can't select the one at all. Just because of the way the digital sticks work. This one would kind of need the analog. It goes in a bit of explanation of Coco and stuff from what he remembers, because this is the computer he grew up with when he was young.
Yeah, here we go.
Then he went to Amiga afterwards. And the version of Kron he's got is actually cracked by somebody that was in Spain or Portugal or something, or South America, because there's some high score tables and stuff actually has some Spanish on it, which I know that's not what I had in mind.
Okay.
So who is this person?
This is Aaron, and he's part of the Amigo. What do they call themselves?
Retro Amigo Brothers or something like that.
Amigo Aaron, and then his brother's in there, and then he's got some other friends that they usually do Amiga stuff, but they've done a couple Dragon 32 things, and they've done some other older 8-bit machines, some consoles, and some are 16-bit home computers and stuff too. So kind of a mixture, mostly Amiga stuff. But he's been getting involved in Coco. He's actually been in our chats a few times over the last month too, because I've invited him to come take a look at the show, and we've chatted a few times back and forth via email. And he kind of got inspired by us that he wants to start doing a podcast, starting probably roughly monthly and hopefully getting up to weekly eventually, of showcasing a Coco game. And he's got a Coco 3 with 512K now, so he can play most of the games.
Yeah, we'll do kind of like what Bruce suggested too. Go ahead and hit play so we see some video playing in the background while you're talking too, even if you mute it. Yeah. Okay, so here he is playing Kron. Clone of Tron. I'm having problems with these Tron games, though, the copies that I have anyways, because I don't have any that work reliably.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go dig my old ones out, because mine were fully working.
Yeah. I have one that's real glitchy with the joystick where it doesn't even read what you're doing, and then there's another one that had a different problem. I don't remember what it was, but I've got unplayable versions of these games.
Yeah. I know this particular one, like here you can see Pontos Max, like that's not what mine says at all. So I've got probably a better cracked version, I guess. Anyway, yeah, he goes through it and then he figures out that he can't get to that one level. He thinks it's a bug in his cracked version of the game, but I think it's because he's running the digital stick.
Okay, cool.
And just for those people who have not seen the other levels here, I'll just
life cycles, light cycles.
It is better than nothing.
And then
and he can't get to the spider because that's like an in-between position that the digital stick won't get to. Yeah. Yeah.
If they made it so that it menu like what it was in the original Tron game, be no problem because it'd be up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Which Electron, the spectral version of Tron, is that way. So if you played that, it should be fine on a digital stick. But this one did 04 horizontal, so you need 0 to 15, 16 to 31, etc.
Exactly.
You need 4 positions, so it doesn't work with the digital.
Cool.
So anyway, that's his gameplay. And then this is their launch of their new Coco show, which is going to be devoted to games specifically, because it's kind of his background. Aaron, the guy on the right. The guy on the left is his co-host on all the Amiga stuff and stuff, and he has barely touched a Coco in his life. He doesn't really know it that well. Now, Aaron has a brother that shows up on some of these shows as well, and his brother did grow up with the Coco same as he did.
Okay.
So he said his brother will probably come to guest on some of these too, because his brother will pick up some of the games that he liked when he was young, and he actually did guest when they did some of the Dragon 32 stuff we showed before. But they want to get the perspective of somebody who has played the Coco games back in the day with the old black bead joysticks and the whole thing. And then they also want this other guy here, the guy on the left, that has basically never played any of this stuff. It's all going to be brand new reactions from this guy.
Okay.
So they need that contrast while they're playing the games, which is a pretty interesting premise to do it by. So I'm interested to see how this show is going to turn out.
Well, they'll at least have one or two players on there that are good, and we'll actually have a video show that shows level 2 of games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that'd be good. Boy, that's a great concept. So this is not a live show. It's recorded then, correct?
At this point, yes. They have done live streams before, though. Not every show they do is live stream. They do occasional live stream. So I don't know if that's going to be happening on the Coco show as well, or if that's going to be strictly on the.
And I think it's important to point out now. This is now going to be the third Coco podcast. Right? We are the second, and this now becomes the third. And so if that says anything, it says that the interest in the color computer is growing if people are wanting to create content spotlighting this machine. So I think it's great. And obviously I support this. And so I want to see more people doing things to raise awareness of the Coco and share their, share their memories and that kind of stuff, and help just hopefully bring a new audience. I'm pretty sure these guys have their own audience as it is right now. Right, so they've got people who are watching them do.
Everyone, welcome to episode 0 of the Coco Show. I'm John,
and I'm Aaron,
and this is just kind of a placeholder episode.
This is just kind of to introduce the show. The actual show, in case you guys are interested, will be at thecocoshow.net.
Okay.
We have a page set up there where you can download the audio version of this particular one.
Aaron, tell me, why are you into the Coco?
Well, Boaster, when I grew up, my parents had the wisdom.
Of course, everybody can watch this themselves too.
Yeah.
Computers are
I just want to let them. You can get a kind of feel of their cadence, etc. So, but basically, this first episode is basically just discussing what they plan to do with the show. So,
yep, that's cool. That's cool. So I'm very happy to see another Coco production out there for the community. So definitely check.
And a specialized one in this case too. I mean, both other podcasts have done game coverage in the past, but we do everything else, hardware and operating systems and everything else. And this is focused strictly on the games.
Yep. Cool
Bruce
stuff.
Points out that this is episode 0.
Uh-huh.
That they correctly started it with 0.
And this is the actual homepage for it.
For the podcast itself.
Yeah.
The Coco Show podcast. So you'll be able to see it on hopefully YouTube and listen to it on the road, right?
Yeah, it's got it on Spotify, as I mentioned here. So
okay, the Coco Show, the third in an offering of color computer content. This is good.
Top three podcasts.
Yeah, he's in the top 3. Yeah.
But will they be consulting Curtis's list?
I gave them some suggestions on that already. We'll see what they do. This was one I came across just by fluke.
Jet Set Willie, I recognize the name.
I don't know the author, and I just, like I said, I found it by fluke. He did a 2-hour live stream apparently, playing XROR. Now, unfortunately, his machine has got some problems with XROR, not just XROR, actually. He mentioned his machine running C64 emulators, the Dragon emulators, and a few other emulators, all have these little glitchy bits. But he was playing Jet Set Willie, and he did a 2-hour stream. I'm obviously not going to play all that. But yeah, he actually kind of talks about the game because it was ported from other machines to the Dragon at the time. And there's also mention like you can skip to different levels at the beginning, which I didn't even know you could do. So I'll have to do some research on the game itself here. But
this looks like one of those AGD style games.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, because the Dragon people usually, if they did the P Mode 4, they stuck to black and white because, of course, they didn't have artifacting colors.
Yeah, colors.
And you also attempted background sound.
Yeah. Yes, Flight of the Bumblebees or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty hard game too. I mean, I've played it a little bit, but not too much, and I didn't know you could skip through the levels.
Oh, you have to collect items.
Yeah, collect items and dodge a lot of obstacles, and then there's different rooms you can go up and down, left, right.
The guy looks like the dancing bear from Shooting Gallery.
Kind of.
Kind of freaky looking.
Yeah. That's neat. Jet Set Willy. So this was a dragon game.
Yeah, there's the old title screen. Anyway, he runs through and he keeps playing, and he does some commentary on it while he's playing.
Alan says it was a Spectrum game originally, so that might be why it looks like an AGD game.
It actually, I think, mentions that. Oops, I think I went too far. For a 2-hour-long video, it's kind of hard to pinpoint the cursor at a specific time.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go. The bottom will tell you that it was a port, I believe.
Software Projects Limited, converted from Matthew Smith's original Spectrum. Okay.
Game. So anyway, I reached out to him and I talked to him a little bit too, and I'll be maybe seeing what other stuff he's done or is planning on doing with Dragon stuff, because it would be nice to get somebody from that side of the pond that actually knows the games from back in the day too to
Absolutely.
do some
Yeah.
Look at that toilet lid.
Is that a toilet flapping up and down?
Yes, it is. That's the bathroom.
Wow, that's a really windy bathroom.
I don't have a clue what that thing at the top is, though.
You don't want to put your bum in that one.
You don't want to get your clappers caught in the flapper there, so flapper caught in the clapper.
Yeah,
So
you'd have to have copper clappers.
A poltergeist bathroom before that was new to me too. So.
Yeah.
Is that a razor blade flipping around?
Yeah.
Wow, dangerous.
It's a pretty bizarre game. I'd have to do some research.
So, attempted background sound, is that something you charged with in computer court?
Attempted. Cool. All right, I've heard enough of this. It's giving me a headache.
Grumpy old man. Get off my lawn.
All right, so this is our Lord Dragon.
Yeah, Todd Wallace, I believe is his real name.
Okay.
Demonstrating his current
Don't
version.
tell anybody his real. That's his secret identity.
Oh.
Don't give it away. Okay.
Well, we're a part of the DC universe here, so it should be okay. Now, this one's only 1:43, so I'll let him actually run through this here because it's just an update. He's got some other stuff, but he's got a pretty cool thing he did at the end of it in particular. Because I remember last time he was trying to show us that he had some bugs he was fixing.
So just for fun, I wanted to see if I could implement my own DOS command to boot straight into OS 9.
Is that too loud, or?
No, that's fine. You could turn it up a little bit, probably.
Get a little bit quiet, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit quiet. Yeah.
It's hard to tell on these things.
He's missing a CM8 door.
Generic OS 9 level 2 disk.
You can go
Some
louder.
people think that the thing he ever had a door is just a rumor.
DOS basic would do its thing, but I'm gonna go and load my disk utility from DriveWire.
Okay. Richard says he's got something he wants to share with us when we get done with the news. Don't let us forget. Okay. RS, what does it say? RS09? I couldn't read that. It went by too fast.
I should be able to.
You're now in an OS 9 file system.
Directory.
This is like a real DOS prompt.
Yep, kind of resembles the Shell Plus type prompts.
Correctly. And
DOS. Attempting. I can't read it. Okay. Oh, it's not. Listen to that floppy
Basically,
grind, huh?
Yeah, basically it figures out that if you've accessed an OS 9 disk that's bootable and you type DOS from his utility, it will actually boot it up.
Okay, unlike the DOS prompt that's built into ROM that won't necessarily do that. Or will it? Is this replacing the DOS command in the disk?
Well, it's not
extended
replacing.
basic?
It's meant to be a utility because you can look at RS-DOS disks and OS 9 disks and
okay.
copy files between
it's
each other,
not
right?
exactly rocket science.
So in this case here, he's actually made it so his utility can boot it up if it finds an OS 9 disk. And I presume if it found a self-bootable disk basic one too.
Okay.
This one, I believe Jason Reichert, I think, posted this, but basically it's a bit of a change of the venue for Tandy Assembly as to where the actual exhibit hall is going to be. It had to move due to circumstances beyond the control.
Okay.
Jason's still in the call. He might have some details on that.
Yeah, I saw a lot of posting on this. I don't know the full.
As far as I know, it's a venue. I guess it's a really cool venue from what I'm hearing, but just across the street and across the plaza. But that's in the table layout will be available, I guess, when vendors and exhibitors get there. But I don't have many details other than that at this point.
But basically, for some reason, they had to relocate across the street to a museum, if I understand correctly, right?
Right, to the Clark County, I think Historical Society or Museum or something like that it was called.
Okay, but the hotel venue itself where people are staying for overnight and stuff, that's still the same.
Hotel venue is fine, but the ballroom that was the conference room last year is unavailable. Evidently, there was a scheduling issue, but the hotels provided this other location, a first floor and a second floor with an elevator. The exhibits are going to be on the first floor. Is that correct?
I believe the exhibits are going to be on the second floor, and the talks will be on the first floor.
Right. So probably the only challenge for folks that are exhibiting is you'll need to pack stuff into an elevator, and it's across the street from the hotel. So I don't know. People might want to bring their own dollies or something, because I'm not sure how possible it's going to be. We used the hotel dollies last year to take stuff into the first floor exhibit hall. So we're going to need to have something to get them into this other building that's on the other side of the street and up the elevator.
There is a parking lot right outside the entrance, so you might be able to park there and move your stuff, because the entrance to that museum, or where they're showing it, to the hotel, it's actually almost a block away. Plus, you have to cross over a street, Plaza Street, or a 2-lane highway.
I thought it was going to be like Seinfeld. You had to play Frogger to get across to your.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that, but it looks like there's a parking lot there, so you might be able to park there and unload. And luckily, David Ladd's not going to be there, so the elevator should be working.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I was going to say I was kind of glad I'm not going to attend the assembly this year, because I don't want to get stuck in another elevator. So.
Yes. All right, cool.
For those people that are going to the show, that's an update for you in case you haven't heard. So, if it's you wander around the hotel on the first day and don't see anything happening, that's why.
And I'll be there next week, so I'll be able to check in there from next week and
live
with my. Live report from Tandy Assembly with my new microphone set up, and see if we can actually hear some of the people I'm talking to this time. That might be helpful.
Nice.
And this one here is a blog update from some Aussie dude. And Nick, I don't know if you want to do a bit of brief commentary while I scroll through it here. I know you've actually got a little ahead of yourself, because originally you were planning to do a blog to describe this new level 3, and then you ended up doing level 3 and 4. Because you're kind of on a roll. Is Nick even still here, or is he asleep?
I don't think he's here.
I think you put him to sleep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a Nick. I could talk for him if you want. So, crikey, I was working on this game.
Crikey, look at that one there.
I know a little bit about it. He actually showed me some. He's been working on levels 3 and 4. And so the bottom right-hand corner is the level 4 in the alien home world. And
yeah, because level 3 is basically more the mechanical side of it, like the city, and then level 4 the abattoir, which is
and if you scroll up a little bit, Bruce, if you scroll up and you see the poster there for the movie, Soylent Green, that's a bit of a hint as to the plot line of the game.
They want to eat people, huh?
Yeah. He said you should call it Soylent Red. So. Now, one thing Nick did say is that he's doing some screenshots. You can kind of see what the levels look like, and the abattoir, which is basically the human processing plant, which you can see in the lower right out of the 4 screenshots. But he doesn't want to do any video, because he wants there to be surprises on these levels. So the videos he's done previously have shown level 1 and level 2 in action. Levels 3 and 4, there will not be any videos coming up for those. This is pretty well all you're going to get as far as a preview, because he wants you to earn your way up to it.
Sure.
So, Stevie, you will never see those other levels.
No, actually, he can watch the Coco Show podcast and see a playthrough.
There you go.
Even Nick.
Loophole.
And then he also described, like, because of all the busy backgrounds he's been adding in here, he had to redesign the colors and the shapes of the aliens' bullets and stuff, because there was so much background details that they were actually getting lost in the plywood track. So we had to do a bit of redesigning to get things to look better again. So he's got the alien bullets now aren't just single vertical lines; they're squiggly animated, like Space Invader shots.
Okay.
So that basically you can see them through the background much more easily. Otherwise, you'd be kind of unfair not being able to see it. So.
Gotcha.
Anyway, he's bound quite a bit of a role here, so he got a bit ahead of himself, and he's now working on the final bosses. So.
Wow. Good job,
Nick.
Nick.
Good progress. He's making good progress on it last.
And he's got some other stuff that he's working on too, but I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't know how much of that he wants public at this point. As it's depending on some stuff being ready on time and being able to bundle, etc. So I'll let him talk about that if he rejoins.
Well, will we be able to play this game with a 2 meg, or will we need the 8?
I think you only need 512 for this.
512K. It does
512
need
and a 6309.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Available at Voice on Tech.
Maybe the final boss will be a kangaroo that shoots SCART cables at you.
Crikey.
Okay, this
it's
one.
It's going to be a croc, obvious.
This one here, we've seen the Living Computer Museum in Seattle before, because there's some Coco displays there. But now, I can't remember who went through here.
Ron Hirsch is the guy who posted it.
Yep. Because he mentions that they've actually got a display set up to look like a living room or a basement room with the Coco and a Tier City Model 1 set up with everything, period correct from the 80s type thing, which I thought's kind of neat. Plus, you get to interact. You can actually play with these. You can see the little robot arm.
Oh, neat.
And some program packs and wood paneling in the background, which I actually remember from my place.
Me too.
We just need one of Jim Brain's big TVs. That's the only thing missing here.
Yeah, that console TV was neat.
They also have a classroom with an overhead projector with a bunch of apples.
And you can't get away from my games. Popcorn. Oh, boy.
You need to program the Robotron to play popcorn. That'd be awesome. Or the Armatron, whatever it's called.
There's not one of Steve's games, so there.
Yeah, finally.
That's one of what the heck's his name?
All right.
Guy from Texas. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. Guy did Racket 2 and Pyramid.
Last name started with an A. Arnstein or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Arnstein.
Nice TRS-80 stuff.
I'd love to know what the actual percentage of software that Steve Bjork wrote for the Coco was.
MC10. MC10 in the box. Look at that.
Why is there an MC10 there?
I
guess that means it's not on display. That's a good thing.
Why is
they hold the doors open better if you keep them in the box?
It's holding up the TI-99s is what it's doing.
Why is the Radio Shack at the bottom?
Bottom shelf. Yeah, look at that. Timex,
alphabetical order.
Why is it on the bottom? Because the TRSA supports them all. No.
Oh, good answer.
There you go.
Good answer.
Yeah.
And for those old timers here who've got the first generation Tandy drives, do you recognize on the far right, the right 4 drives there, which one of those was the original one?
Probably the bottom left one with the on-off switch in the front.
Yep, that is correct.
Yeah.
That's the ejector. That's not it should have been.
That's the airbag deploy lever.
That was the 35 track, not 40. It did not work at 40 track. It was 35 tracks that had the little push ejector button switch that popped the drive door open. And these were hideously unreliable and only could do 20 milliseconds.
If you were lucky.
Another reason why they're notoriously unreliable, they used a belt drive.
Yes,
to
that's
spin
right.
it.
That little yellowish plastic thing that would stretch after a while and change the speed on you. And so.
Yeah, those were made by Tech or Tokyo Electronics.
Hey, Richard, remember how they had a strobe wheel on them so you could adjust the timer potentiometer or the spin speed?
Yeah,
and they had 50 and 60 hertz blocks on the spin thing too, where you could actually shine a light with 50 or 60 hertz signals to get it to time 300.
All the 5 1/4 ones had that.
Yeah. Well, when they finally went to a direct drive, they got rid of the wheel because it was no longer needed. The thing would spin at the proper speed all the time.
Yeah, and Steve, was it you that wrote the speed timing thing that was included with the OS9 discs?
I didn't write that one, but I did write one that used a light pin.
Oh, okay.
That was given away and like that, and with just the timing. And the reason why I wrote it is because I had to slow the drives down to, was it 290 RPMs to use them to write Atari 400, 800 discs. I had taken a TRSA Model 1, and that became our duplication station for making Atari disc. And the previous way, it could take up to 15 minutes to make the disc. Using the TRSA, we got it down to about 10 or 15 seconds.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So the Tandy 501 drive was a direct drive that still had the strobe on it.
Mm-hmm.
J&M controllers with 16K had a routine in there too, didn't they? For
yeah, the J&M ones had
drives.
speed. They also had alignment discs if you had the right ROM, and the alignment disc itself was a specially formatted disc for checking head alignments.
Right.
Okay. Sheldon
Fun
McDonald's been a
times.
busy boy. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
And I was just saying, fun times. People don't realize how good they got it with the SDC.
Yeah, that's true. Sheldon McDonald's been kind of busy. He's put up a few things here. So we got his mini MPI last week, and you can see it in the photo here. And he's been
and the new keyboard.
His GMC. Oh yeah, I guess so. And he's got his GMC, which then goes back into the cassette port, so you can use audio on, audio off to shut your GMC sound on and off. So he's been doing some testing with both the regular multi-pack and with the mini MPI, which he had to fix one bug since some of his videos were made. He's got that picture there. And then he's got this little video demo. I won't play the whole thing because it's...
You can turn the volume up a little bit more, probably. The volume was kind of low before, so...
Ahead here.
Is and really all it is
How's that for volume?
Game Master cartridge.
You can probably go up a little bit higher if you
that's
want.
going to be playing the music. It's just acting like a sound card. So I'm going to load my music player. So the reason why I've done this, and I know people are probably saying, well, all you have to do is poke those 3 pokes in and the music is on already in the Coco. This is to really simplify it. The whole idea of this is also so you can just plug it straight into a set of speakers and not have any interruption if those pokes get changed and it somehow kicks your music out. At least having this cable in, this idea here still can be kicked out, but it's easier to turn back on. For this, it's just a command audio on. Okay, so now with audio on, the sound source is actually going looped right back through the computer into the TV. I'm gonna also, with the new cartridge, I'm gonna make an adapter to plug it straight into speakers.
I like his new case here. He's actually got musical notes kind of 3D.
Or if you're
yeah.
sourcing your music off of it to record it on your PC or whatever, then you just plug it back into your PC. Okay, so the player, I've made it so you can actually save a file to automatically
Get to the part where we can hear the music.
start
Let's
playing.
scrub up a little bit.
I'm going to load...
So the new thing he added this time around is he's got it so you can actually have the Game Master cartridge audio file has a flag in it that you can tell it automatically start playing or load in the background, and I'll turn
You
it
can
on when I
also
need to.
see it's not using the high-speed poke, but if you did poke the high-speed poke, it shouldn't be affected.
Yeah, it doesn't change the pitch or anything. It actually keeps the song playing and get your basic
So you
program
can see the
running.
cursor's going crazy, but the sound is still the same.
Because that was one problem with Speech Sound Pack. You did the full double speed poke, and the clock signal goes out.
It's a good soundtrack to show off that chip too.
Yeah.
We'll try Star Tropics. Any settings in it to start the?
So that one's not an auto starting one, so it doesn't.
So I need to poke it in. Okay, let's
see
just
what findings
try.
There's another bit of percussion.
Very chiptune, yeah.
And yeah, that fade out that he mentioned before. Anyway, he's got that, and then he did a second follow-up video. This time he's got his new cartridge case in there, and he's running off the mini MPI. But basically, it's demoing kind of the same thing. So if you want to see the videos and see some of the specifics, it goes into a little bit of details. But it's a pretty good project, and I like the way he's interfaced it with the cassette port with BASIC. And as far as the BASIC program is concerned, you load in your sound file that you've converted from MIDI as a utility to do that, and then it's just audio on, audio off to play your background music. That's all you have to worry about in BASIC.
Yeah,
and loading.
go.
So,
good job, good project.
Yeah, Mike Hockey posted on the, and it's spelled differently than the actual sport. But he posted in the Coco group here. He bought a Coco 3, which he hadn't opened up for a while. And he finally opened it up and discovered there's this whole custom board. Now, he should have noticed this little, port that somebody drilled in the side. But people have been trying to figure out exactly what this is doing. It's tied into one of the PIAs. As you can see, the wires are coming off there onto this little thing. But people have been trying to figure out exactly what does this board do. And they've been trying to speculate. Some people thought it was some sort of keyboard thing. Some people thought it might have been a timer thing.
But those pins are unused on the PIA, so whatever it is, had to use custom software.
Yeah, and apparently the guy that sold it to him was originally a ham guy, so they're figuring maybe it's some sort of ham radio related mod. I don't know enough about it to even speculate. So, but we've had that occasionally too, where other people have bought a used Coco 1, 2, 3 from wherever, and they've all of a sudden found tons of hardware mods, some of which are pretty obvious, like rerouting the power switch or the reset switch, and some nobody to this day has any idea what the heck they do.
Interesting. So nobody here has any speculations on that?
Area 51 stuff.
Area 51. Okay, let's storm them and let's get to the bottom of this. So, okay.
What is using the port on the side? Is that a 5-pin DIN plug? Is it?
Yes, I think it was 5. Let me.
Motherboard looks pretty clean.
Yeah, it's a 5-pin.
Ham radio and 5-pin DIN. That's like I wonder if it's something to do with a transmitter, or I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
Is it a serial or something?
No. 4 bits.
Going to one of the PIAs, it looks like an input scanning for something, or something going to a PIA.
Oh, is that the same kind of connector you would use for MIDI, or is that a different kind of connector?
It's a MIDI connector, but that would have been pre-MIDI.
Well, if we're talking about a ham, it could be something to do with Morse code.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, the kind of connector used doesn't, speaking, I guess, as the resident ham, I mean, the kind of connector, it's hard to say what that could be. It might be ham related, but with just that clue, it's really hard to say what could be going on there.
Probably best just to rip it out and forget about it.
It's a smoke generator.
Smoke.
Yeah.
That's great. I won't have to use my ears for that anymore.
All right. Well, if anybody comes up with any theories, I guess we can always revisit.
Yeah, there's a whole discussion on Facebook. People have been putting in their ideas and stuff and possible things to try. So
all right, I like this picture
one's
here.
For Mr. Bruce Moore here, because we've been asking for some possible designs for the upcoming 40th anniversary of the Coco CoCoFEST, some themes and pictures and stuff, and that's Bruce's submission, which I quite like.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, I like it too because it's very simple and to the point.
It's a floating Coco.
Floating Coco.
It should look pretty good on pamphlets, shirts, stuff like that.
Yep. Good contrast, which should show up.
And the other thing too, it gets you the 2 points across with the year of the CoCoFEST and how long has the Coco been around, Mike.
Yeah.
God, I feel old.
Yeah. And you got a 40 candle in there too. Yeah, Bruce was saying in the live comments there. Yeah, looks good. Good job, Bruce.
Use the right model too. It's got the badge on the left,
the old
the
deer
round badge on the
You got the the left badge and then the left badge with the RAM badge on the corner. Yeah.
It's even more correct because it has a little bit of the wearing off the silver paint. You can see the black underneath because the later exports have white plastic instead. So
It's well loved.
Yeah. Mine had actually, you could see where my two wrists rested because it was totally black and shiny.
Same here.
Same on mine. Yeah.
And to be honest, I always wondered if we scraped all the silver paint off, would a nice smooth black actually look better? Ron, did you paint yours black or did you strip the paint off for your black
Just
one?
a Coco 2.
Oh, okay. So it was a painted over one then.
Yeah.
I wonder what a Darth Vader Coco 1 would look like. That's an interesting question, huh?
Yeah, we should make one.
Well, if you scrape the silver paint off cleanly, it is black underneath on the original D&E board. So
yeah,
Yeah.
might be able to see it.
Yeah, mine's a E-board. It's
All the
probably
way down
only
to the
E-board.
primer.
Probably one of the only E-boards with a Coco VGA in it.
This one here, Eric Averick has been asking about this for a while. There's some previous posts on Facebook about it. So there's a program called Display. My Mr. Meredith, I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. I think it's on the little video. But basically, it's a 3D display program. And I actually had a copy of this back from the day because somebody was getting hot cocoa on tape. And basically, you could specify up to 26 points and up to 26 lines connecting the points in 3D space. And then the program had a few hotkeys that would display your thing in real time. And you could rotate it on X, Y, and Z axes. And you could also zoom in and out. And as you can see from the screenshot here of the video before I started up here, the article, the author says, the 609 is a wonderful chip that only works so fast. I do not believe this program could be recoded to run more than twice as fast as it does now. And as you can see from Eric's comment at the top there, if you can read it, it says challenge accepted.
Maximize it if you can too when it starts playing. Maybe it is now. Hold on. It's still buffering. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, so this first part of the video is showing a couple of, he doesn't do the zoom in and zoom out, he just does the rotates, but it's basically showing it running at the stock speed the original program ran.
Okay. A little slow. It's smooth though. It's very smooth.
Yeah. I remember because we designed like little enterprises and all kinds of stuff here.
Okay.
Reminds me of the Tandy assembly thing that Simon did.
Yeah, true.
Yep. And this is Eric's first go at the machine language
optimizing it. Wow, look at the difference, huh? And it's so smooth too. Look how smooth it is. There's no.
And that's just 0.895 megahertz.
Is that double buffering?
That's not an MC10.
Was it double? I actually, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the code for that because I don't have that hot cocoa anymore. I don't know, but he said he's not done yet. And I actually asked him in the comments to see, well, you're going to do a 639 version. Would that help much either? I'd like to see what it could really do if you could really get it cranked and going. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was the basis of the Space Wreck game that came out from Spectral by Steve Eastking the next year, because this came out in '83.
And was that why the Vectrex used a 6809, because it could do the hardware multiplication, so things like these vector tracking were easier to pull off? Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the cheapest processor with the multiply.
Hardware multiply. Yep.
Yeah. Because you had to step up to an Intel 8086 or 68,000 to get to that. They were quite expensive. 6809 was relatively cheap.
Yep, and the 6502 and the Z80 didn't have hardware multiply at all. So
I mean, honestly, I would love to see a decent vector game on the Coco. You know, it doesn't have to be all sprites, but from the looks of this, you can get decent speeds with vectors.
Yeah, well, the Battlezone clones we've seen are not too bad at that.
Yeah.
And Space Wreck, which is kind of the Star Trek simulator from the arcade, are a few that did use an engine similar to this.
Well, see, the problem with it is you got to draw the lines and remove them, where a vector display, you're just drawing the lines all over again. So
they self-erase.
They self-erase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks like Eric's actually responded to my question here. Secondary hat tip. Spends more time clearing the screen and reading the keyboard than doing math. The code running in the video detects 6 or 9 between the fast block transfer and changing a lot of 2-cycle math operations to single cycle. That's a good chunk of the speed up. More to be done with algorithmic changes to the line draw routines. My goal is to post source and let the community play code golf with it.
Code golf. I've never heard that term before.
So basically, once he releases this, much faster engine there, if somebody wants to make a vector 3D game, you'll have the engine to do it. You just have to define the points, the lines, and then your rotations and stuff. So,
yeah, back in the days when I was learning, we had a group of programmers, and everybody would sit down and take a concept and see who could write the fastest game of life, or the fastest this or that or whatever. And for about 5-6 weeks, that would be the challenge everybody had. So this is similar to that, where you just challenge and challenge and challenge.
And that's cool.
And then when I joined the challenge, everybody.
Matchy just chimed in.
Naturally.
Matchy says vector challenge accepted. All right, this is gonna be interesting to see what Matchy does now. So, hold my beer. All right, cool.
Okay, the second time that Sheldon McDonald has showed up on here.
I have a question. Did he have a farm?
A farm?
McDonald.
Okay.
Boom.
TV's humor is just getting worse as we progress, folks.
Yeah, I'll be here all week, folks. Try the fish. Yes. All right. So.
Way to bring everything to a screeching halt.
Somebody's got to put the brakes on this news.
So anyway, he's been doing some prototyping on making new game pads with 2 buttons to work on all 3 models, Coco 1, 2, and 3. And this is one of his prototypes here.
Okay, looks neat.
Stages of it. And it looks like he used the Black Beauty as the basis of the one in the upper right there. So it's kind of an interesting proposal.
Yeah.
2-button Black Beauty. Now, who would have thought?
And all its analog beautiness.
Yep. And this is the final news item I had for today. If Diego actually demonstrated this on one of our programming shows we did, 2 months ago now? I can't remember now. But he actually came in and showed this dock master where you're loading carts on cargo ships and stuff. But now he's fleshed it out, added some stuff. He's got these little high res or higher res, I should say, because it's semi-graphics for the rest of it. But he has these little, bonus screens when you've done really well type thing.
Neat.
In P mode 0, so it still don't take much RAM. But
super fast score boost. That's a cool screen there because that peach color is kind of like a bonus color of our 9 colors. That's like a 10th color right there. That's when you do that alternate color set on your text mode, right?
Not in this
or is that's the actual orange then?
Yeah, that's the actual orange because you can see the green text. It's still green, but yeah.
I see. I thought that was the peach color set from the text.
Yeah, because you get those 2 extra. You get a dark red extra and a slightly different order.
Okay, my bad. Perfect order. All containers are in the right place. So this is neat. It's a neat where you have a little graphical splash screen in the middle of that. Yeah, that is cool. Perfect balance. Wow, look at all these little things he's got. This is very clever. Dockmaster is loading. Yeah.
And that is the news.
And that's the news, ladies and gentlemen.
It's Snyder
Ron,
Shoot. Just let me bring that up again because I think.
Okay, and then I think there was some. Richard Lorbieski wants to update us on something. I believe somebody wanted to hear an update from Jim Brain on something, so we need to. Let me know when you're ready, though, Curtis.
I am ready now. Let me just get my share going again here.
What were you going to say, David?
I was just going to say the same thing that you did, that you mentioned that Ed Snyder had an update on the Gimme X.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Colors. These look like
this
pastels.
is that new mode. Apparently they just made. It's the Gimme X mode. It's 640 by 112, so it's full horizontal resolution, but it's basically the same vertical resolution as Gunstar 112.
Okay.
Basically the 225 mode with doubled up pixels, but 256 colors at the 640 res.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, zoom in on some of them because we're seeing them small right now.
You can see it looks a little bit choppy on the vertical, but because you got all 256 colors and you've got the really fine detail left to right, you can actually still get some pretty decent looking pictures.
Yeah. Can you do a full screen?
Zoom in on something, Curtis. Click on one so we can see it bigger.
Oh, I'm zooming it here. You're not seeing that?
No, your screen is frozen. That's
Can
because
hear
you're
'em
using a damn
clicking.
Mac.
So you're not seeing the changes of
No,
pictures? or anything?
no.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay, let me go back to.
Go back to Windows. It works.
Yeah, sure. Apparently,
Mac
you've been hallucinating again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis Boyle shares the screen.
Well, the real problem is he's using a Mac.
Yeah.
It's always funny. The Macs people always have the most problems on this
The real
show.
problem is it's Facebook. To be honest.
Oh, now you're putting the blame on something else.
Listen, Mark Zuckerberg has never steered us wrong.
Zuckerberg, I can blame from everything from
No.
world hunger to hurricane.
All right, fine. We'll blame the real culprit. It's your web browser.
Facebook's running on a Mac.
Yeah, we're still frozen here, Curtis. Maybe stop sharing and reshare or something.
I blame the Amish.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just try that again here.
If worse comes to worse, Steve, you can bring it up on.
Okay, Ed Snyder just chimed in too. Ed said, "Look at the other two posts if you didn't last week. Those are better."
Well,
this is a weirdo mode. Okay, here we go. That looks good though.
That's really good.
I like these colors. They're very. This looks like an oil painting.
Vivid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very vivid.
Yeah.
I'll see what happens when you got 256 colors.
Wow, look at these. Look at these pastels. That's really nice.
Wow.
These look like oil paintings.
Turn around.
But this
Turn around.
Jeez.
Welcome to the dirty old man show.
Ron, I had better respect for you, man.
She's pretty. Come
Yes.
on.
Yeah, that looks like a
I'm
nice.
gonna tell your wife about
It's
this.
like a nice
Yes.
Sony CRT there too. Look at that Sony.
But this does prove that the resolution is not as the pixel resolution is not as important as the color resolution to make really good looking pictures. Because I mean, this is 640, which is really high res vertically, but 112. This is like the equivalent of P mode 2 vertically type thing.
It's
That's cool. That's cool. So these are the latest images. He's been posting a lot of images lately on some of these.
Yeah,
Gimme
he's
X
done
modes.
the 640 by 450 by 16 color and the 320 by.
Ron, this is what happened when
25.
she turned around. You see what you asked for?
Yeah, thanks.
Dragon face. That's a pretty flower. Neat. Oh yeah, man. This is like oil painting. All we need is Bob Ross in here right now. So a couple of happy clouds there.
Well, some of these are
There you go.
probably from.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, the tiger or the lion he had on was from a paint by number
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, they're neat pictures.
Yeah.
that one there. The sky is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, one thing Ed also mentioned in the post related to this is that he's still working on doing the double vertical resolution, which I talked about last week about doubling your vertical from the 192, 200, 225 to 384, 400, 450. And one of those modes, a 4-color 320 mode, that if he doesn't implement that, I will be putting that into Nitrous 9 and I will be putting that into G Shell.
Neat. Cool. Breaking news.
I wish Ed would just come on here and talk to us.
Yeah.
We could probably do half the show on what he has to spill out of his brain.
In half, we could do 2 shows.
Yeah.
Gimme X is the only thing. The Gimme X is the only thing I need now to complete my Coco 3 Plus.
Yeah, and David O'Connor's got almost the entire Ed Snyder collection. He's got Coco VGAs. He's got mini MPIs. He's plugged an MPI into an MPI live on the air without a net. So with the power on.
David, if you had a wife, you'd only have the Gimme X. That's it.
So,
Yeah, that's too.
Thank you for doing the news there, Curtis. Hopefully some of us stayed awake during that, so that's good. So we have a couple of kind of closing the loop here. So there was a few announcements that took place at VCF. For example, there was a new product by Jason the Coco Man. He had a new product. Richard Lorbieski also had announced a few products last week when we were streaming live. I'm not sure how well you guys could hear the audio from all of that too. So I think Richard said he wanted to mention something about an announcement. I know Jim Brain was going to update us on something that John Strong had asked him about earlier. So why don't we try to get back all to that to close up the whole VCF theme here? Who wants to go first? Richard, you want to go? Is Richard Lorbieski still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Jim could go first. It doesn't matter. Mine.
Jim, did you want to give an update on what John Strong was asking about your update on your OPL chip?
Sure. So working on getting the real-time clock capability, got that soldered on. I had to get some parts for that. The only piece left right now before I can put it in production is the line out, the jack connection on that needs to have a bit of amplification. So the good news is the amplifiers that I need to use are already on the board, so I don't have to add any more parts. The not quite so good news is that because of the small size of the board, the layout is already very compressed, and so it's been taking me quite a while to rearrange everything so that I can get those op amps hooked up so that I can get that amplified a little bit. Once that's in place, then I can put the unit in production. So that's my update.
Hey, Jim, for our new watchers, what are you doing this for? Sorry.
So early in the year, probably about January or so, folks were talking about the fact that a lot of people have the Coco SDC, but it does not have a real-time clock, and it also we've had a number of commentary and sessions around audio capabilities of the color computer. About the same time, Ed has been coming out with his Mega Mini MPI, which also has a Yamaha OPL2, OPL3 audio synthesizer on board, the YMF262. And so there were some people who were saying, well, I don't know, I already have an MPI, but I really would like to have the audio chip that's in that new device, but I don't really want to buy a whole new MPI. There were other folks saying, wouldn't it be nice if you could just have a single unit that had the Coco SDC disk drive replacement as well as a real-time clock and an audio capability. So actually Nick Marinas, who's not on right now, or maybe had come back on, but he had suggested a while back having a pass-through connector, so a pass-through board. So the board would be very shallow, and it would have a connector that plugs into the color computer and then a socket that you could plug the Coco SDC on. The Coco SDC's functionality would not be changed, but you would add these 2 or 3 additional capabilities on this little kind of extra board. And then you would just put the whole thing in a little bit larger case that John Strong made up a sample of, so a 3D printed case that was a little bit longer. You just put it all in there, and then you'd have the floppy, you'd have audio, you'd have some additional RAM, some additional flash ROM, and a real-time clock all built into one unit. And then obviously if the response is good, then I think Ed was thinking that if the response is good for that, then he would make a new revision of the Coco SDC itself that would just contain those capabilities right on the main SDC board. But for right now, just trying to finish up that little extension so that we can give a try and see how well it'll be received.
Yeah, I was one of the people who says, listen, I would love a sound chip, but I really don't want to use an MPI. I'm short on space, so I think a lot of people would love a nice new sound chip, but not everybody wants the overhead of the additional desktop real estate required to have that sidecar with all the extra cartridges. So this is a great niche. This, in my opinion, is what the Coco SDC should have been on its probably second or third run. I mean, it's been run so many times that somebody should have said, dude, wouldn't it be nice just to pop a sound chip on this card? To me, I don't give 2 shits about a real-time clock, but somebody thought that was important. But to me, a sound chip is all I care about. But wouldn't it be great to put a sound chip on here and just have the Mega Super Coco SDC? It's all most people need, most normal people, right? Yep. I don't need like 9 serial ports and a bunch of other crap like that. So for me, that would be perfect. A Coco SDC with the sound chip, I'm a happy guy. So Jim Brain's getting closer to making that happen for us. So not wasting extra slots, not needing more stuff on the side of your desk. And it's going to be compatible with an existing sound chip, which will potentially become the standard, right? There's a few floating chips out there. None of them have been standardized, so this might help solidify a standard.
Correct.
So you're using the OPL3 chip in that as well, yeah?
Yeah, it's the same chip that Ed is using in the Mega MPI, Mega Mini MPI. Same chip. It's I'll just be honest. Audio circuitry is probably my weakest subject, and so I trying to lay this out and make sure that it is, from an audio perspective, it's clear and crisp and whatnot. But recently, it just didn't seem like it was loud enough coming out of the audio out jack.
If you want a hand with anything with audio, that's my forte is audio electronics.
We should chat. I'll get you a cross point switch, and you can help me out with kind of finishing up, making sure this sounds good. I know who was it asked me? Oh, I think it was Paul Fisgrelli. So I do have one of the boards. Ed actually has an earlier revision of the board, and then I've got another one of the board prototypes that Paul's asked to have. I think Simon Johansson get a copy of it so he could, because he does a lot of stuff with audio. So obviously having a bunch of interesting things to show off on the unit always helps out from an interest perspective.
Yeah, and let me just jump in real quick for two reasons. So Ed Snyder, if you're still out there, one of the things that I had on my wish list is I've never used your media player before. We were trying to show off some of your music on Sunday, and it would have been nice if if that OPL player could have just kept playing the songs, unless I didn't know how to use it, but we had to play one and then play another. We were trying to show off some of that music. So maybe a future version of somebody's going to make a player that the player can kind of do a playlist and just keep songs going, so we could run it in a demo mode. It'd be kind of a cool feature.
Yeah, it would be.
If we have the real-time clock, we could have a microwave fit on the MPI, correct?
Microwave?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it could be like a VCR where the clock's always flashing 12, 12, right? So so that's Jim Brain's update.
Popcorn.
Richard,
just won't take the time in the Nitrous 9 anymore. That'd be nice.
Bruce wanted to point out Bruce was one who asked that Simon get a copy of the thing. Evidently, that's an important piece to note. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I also want to mention, Ed mentioned here too. He said, we will roll these expander features out into the new STC. Very close to 1,000 units out there already, which is a bit of a news update. Because last time we heard was about 800. And he said all of those could, of course, use the expander that Jim's proposing rather than having to buy a new STC. You can just add that, and basically it's the same capability.
Right, because there's almost 1,000 out there. This is a retrofit. So I've got 2 or 3 SDCs, so I don't necessarily want to buy another SDC just to get the sound card either. But now I can bolt this thing onto that and have the SDC and the sound. So this is a perfect companion to those 1,000 SDC owners. So hopefully you got a potential market of 1,000 units out there.
I will.
Wait, we didn't take the existing.
Because I need a new SDC for my Coco 1, so I might as well get the new one with the expanded sound capabilities and real-time clock. And then my existing one, I'll put in the little extender and get the same capabilities on that.
So do we need to take the SDC guts out and put it in a new case with the extender?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, you would have to upgrade the case. So the case right now for the Coco SDC is kind of a squarish case, and the one that you'd need is more of a rectangular case. It's a little shorter than one of the old style long cases from
like a hard drive.
Candy.
Yeah. Like the old hard drive controller, it was a real long card.
Yeah, real long card, or the RS-232 card, which is kind of long card. It's a little bit shorter than that, but it's longer than the current Coco SDC.
If we keep adding stuff to the SDC, will we have to have some sort of tinfoil hat?
I don't think we're in any danger of that yet.
Yeah.
One question related to these and related to audio capabilities, and John Strong was talking about porting play command to be able to use the OPL3 chip in the Mega Mini MPI. If that was to come to fruition, would that also work with the extender? I guess it would with the same chip, or is it a different version?
It works the same. So one of the key tests was Ed had made a player for his Mega Mini MPI OPL3 chip. So like at Tandy or at CoCoFEST or whatnot, I just loaded up the Coco SDC with the extender, and I used the same software. No changes necessary. There is one small thing that people have to realize. If people run their code such that they look for the Coco SDC and they say, oh, it's on port 4. If their code does not try to say, okay, well, the SDC is on port 4, so this other stuff must be on another port. The code that checks for what's in what slot or whatnot needs to check individually for each component. So the Coco SDC is on slot 4, but also the audio might be on slot 4 as well. Whereas in the Mega Mini MPI, I think it's in slot 5 or 6 or something like that. So just as long as they make sure that they check for functionality in a slot without assuming that because the slot has something else in it, it can't possibly have audio, then the software should work fine.
Yeah, right.
Okay, because in Nitrous 9, I think I'll just make this slot as part of the descriptor, so you can just set it with X mode. So if you have it with the same, like with the SDC, you can set it to slot 4, and if you have it as a separate thing, you can put it in slot 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it is.
Correct.
All right.
Okay, for me, CoCoTALK has ended. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Have a good day.
Okay, take care, Ronnie. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a minute, too. But Richard Larbieski mentioned he wanted to give us an update on something.
Yeah, this is what's so good about having a live show, because you can actually do stuff on the fly. And I do have them available, and they will ship out Monday. But I do have joystick adapters and the classic 512K boards available. You can go to the marketplace on my website at Voice on Tech, and you can order those, and they will go out Monday.
Excellent.
So yeah, they are in stock. I don't know. There's one other thing that's really bothering me, and I'm just going to bring it up about the joystick adapter. They are not copies of anything. Those are designs that have been around since the early 80s, and it was based on a design that was from Coco Wikipedia. So, this BS about me copying a product is totally bogus, and I don't appreciate that being spread around.
There you go. All right. You heard it here.
So, fair enough.
You heard it here. Now, you also, if you want to just repeat something you announced last week when we were live at VCF Midwest about some product announcements, in case for those who didn't hear it well because of all the background noise of the exhibit hall, do you want to just remind us what you kind of told us last week when we were live on some new potential products from Boyson Technologies?
Oh, sure. These are now just proof of concepts, and I did have them out for demo. One of them is a real-time clock that will fit into a ROM, and so you just plug it into a ROM slot, empty ROM slot. Let's say like for your RS-232, you could place that in there, and then you could put the ROM on top of that, and it will. Right now, we just have the software to work with the Nitrous 9, and it acts as a real-time clock. And the other thing that I have is a Mylar replacement for the Coco 3 keyboard. So, there's a lot of dead Coco 3 keyboards out there, and most of them are just because of the Mylar, not, it has a cut trace or a worn trace somewhere like that. This actually will replace it. It's not a Mylar replacement. It's actually it puts in a board along with the little dome switches in there, along with the Spectra strip. And it's you take that Mylar strip out, you put this one in as a replacement. And target price is about $35, $40. Okay. But I should have those available for next CoCoFEST, maybe even sooner.
Very cool.
Question on your real-time clock thing. Is it small enough and shallow enough that it'll fit in the SDC and then the ROM on there, or is that? Oh no, that's flash ROM. Never mind.
Yeah,
disk controller. But a disk controller would work with a disk controller and like not just an RS-232 pack.
Yeah, it'll work with the disk controller. It should work with even if you want to put it into a game.
What about under your extended basic ROM in the motherboard? Will it?
That's coming soon. The software. It just has to be patched to where it will recognize that. And I'm also going to be coming up with another version of it, hopefully, within a couple of months or even sooner than that, even sooner. But I'll have a different version of that, and I'll show it off. But right now, it's in the drawing board right now.
Okay. One of the segments that we didn't get to today was project updates and acquisitions, and I am going to have to cut the show short here in just a minute because my wife is cooking and it smells really good out there. But
our apologies to Matt Damon, who we don't have time for tonight.
But yeah, Matt Damon, we got to bump Matt Damon. But also, Jason Reichert had debuted a product at VCF. You want to remind us what that cable was, Jason Reichert?
Absolutely. What I debuted this time at VCF Midwest was the Kookaburra cable.
Uh-huh.
And to keep in the theme of the Australian-sounding names, the Kookaburra cable is a 3-foot extension for your VG or your RGB port on your Coco 3, and I had that up and running at VCF. Actually, had a Wallaby. Splitting it into two, and I had a CMA on the complete opposite side of the table than I had the Coco 3 at, running a switcheroo, and right next to the MC10, and I actually had some people going, "There's no way that Pac-Man's running on that MC10." I said, "No, it's not. It's running on the Coco 3 on the other side of the table."
Cool.
But those will be available also at Tandy Assembly next week, and they will be on my website very soon at cocoman.biz.
No, I do want to show off real quick one acquisition I just got last night, and damn it, Ron's not here. I'll have to save it. I'll show it for you guys anyways. I won't put it on then. So I was at the Halloween.
Does someone have a question?
I was at the Halloween store, and there is Ron Delvaux costumes you can
Coco
get now.
Talk is an unscripted.
Hold on. Here's my Ron Delvaux costume I got from the Halloween store. So, I just wanted to show that off real quick, but I'll have to save it for when Ron's here, and I'll put it on too. So
that's awesome. I also have one more announcement or comment. Of course, thanks Grant for reminding everybody. Yeah, the spilt Coke incident.
Listen, Grant can't not screw something up, right? So that's the tradition. He's screwing up elevators, now he's screwing up motor vehicles. Go ahead, tell us about this.
Oh yeah, I was actually I think what it was is he brought a Coke in from Portello's. It was a root beer, and he set it down, and I distracted him because he was sitting on my reading glasses. So he pulled those out, and we're driving along in the parking lot, and I hit a bump, and I was going to turn the corner, and you could actually see a slow motion of this drink going down on my floorboard and hitting, and it hit perfectly because the lid popped off, and there was just root beer everywhere on my floorboard, and he was worried I was going to get like super mad. And I was like, no, it's not worth getting mad. I'm just going to use it as a club for at least 2 or 3 months. I'm going to wring this out, and sure enough, that's what I'm doing right now. But he helped clean it up, and I got home, and most of it is out, and it didn't cause any damage, but still.
There you go. Now we'll have a lot of fun making fun of him now for years to come.
Yeah. So just to warn you, don't let Grant bring any kind of food or drink in your vehicle.
I am looking forward to Can making a game based on this.
Yes. Now we have Nightmare Highway. Now we have Spill.
Nightmare Passenger.
Yeah.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yes. Can't, lady.
Well, there was the other highway incident on the way to VCF Midwest.
Brake failing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, brake failing, bearing failure. So Ken's got a couple games queued up.
Oh wow! Yes.
Wheels will fall off.
Jason,
and we all.
Jason, just one little thing. Your pronunciation of our Aussie animal that you just mentioned then. Is that a custom pronunciation, or can I correct you on that?
Kookaburra?
That's Australian. You don't
it's
recognize it.
It's a kookaburra.
Kookaburra.
It's a 3-foot extension cable.
Learn to speak Australian, man.
Learn to speak Australian.
Let us teach you.
Picture you cooking it.
It's the Australian version.
I saw it on a package of Australian licorice I bought at the candy store, and I went, "That's a name."
There's a name.
Very cool. Well,
so that cable, would it plug into the bottom of your computer, and you plug the you plug the switcheroo into it? Or
It'll plug into the bottom of the Coco 3 just like the switcheroo and the Wallaby cable, and you can do it that way, or you can run it. Yeah, you can. That's fine. It will plug into the bottom, no problem. It'll plug into a Wallaby, no problem.
Gotcha.
So there's tons of RGB offerings from the Coco Man. Well, I want to have thank again our special guest today, Matt from Drackware. I also want to thank the guys at Glenside who are very comfortably rocking on their chairs. Now, Brian, are you muted or are you unmuted?
Hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, hey Brian.
Hey.
Are you? Is everybody still there? Or are they starting to mosey off and head home?
A few people have moseyed off.
Was the barbecue a success?
Yeah, our stomachs are full.
That's good. That's good. There's Tony with his
leftover?
watermelon. Hey, Tony.
Are there any leftover burgers or leftover sausages or anything?
Oh, yeah, we've got burgers yet to fry up if we wanted to, but there's
Oh, cool. I'll start heading down there then. It's
All
only
right.
a 22-hour drive.
Curtis is on his
we'll
way.
be there.
Well, at least no police reports have been filed yet. So
Yes, that's good.
Good thing.
That's good. And thanks for being here, Matt. We appreciate it. Hopefully we didn't. Yeah, you can come back anytime. You're gonna hear about us babbling about a bunch of crap, but you're welcome to come back. Thank you, Glenside guys. I can see right now on camera. I see Eric Canales. I see Brian. We saw Tony with the watermelon. Whoever else is there, hello to you. Mark D. Overholzer, thanks for being here. L. Curtis Boyle, Mark Bosley, thank you for being here. Nick Marotta, Jason Reichert, David O'Connor, g'day. Retro Innovations, Jim Brain, thanks for being here and really giving us a great perspective on the VCF Midwest. And Grant Leedy, thanks for not only breaking elevators, but ruining automobile vehicles as well. Richard Lorbieski, thank you. You're all too kind. And everybody in the live chat who's been here too. Alan Huffman and Rob Inman and DeBruce Moore and Dragon Bites and Matchy and Ed Snyder, the Cylon himself, DeBruce and Ed and Paulie Walnuts, Fiscarelli and Salvador Garcia. And you were there and Auntie M was there and Toto too. Everybody was here. Thanks guys for being here. We appreciate you watching us. We've still been holding strong at about 30 viewers this whole time. So to all of you, explore VR as well. Thank you, and we're sorry. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run the closing credits, and then we'll have some final thoughts right after this. This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click the Patreon link at our website at CoCoTalk.live.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
CoCoTALK would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leedy, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Tom C., Rob Inman, Mark Bosley, Brian Joyce, Ken Reichert, David O'Connor, Brian Weezer, Terry Steggy, Nick Marotta, John Strong, and many more, especially to Steve Bjork for production suggestions and James Diffendaffer for making my head explode. Please help support the Coco community by visiting some of its various contributors. A list of resources is available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. All right. This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK. Catch you guys maybe later on Discord, and maybe we can decide if we want to do an after show later this evening. But I smell some food that's got my name on it. So I'm going to press the button. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Push the button, Frank.
Buttons being